Welcome to the Podium Proof F1 podcast. I'm Frank Alessi.
I'm David Alessi.
And I'm Dustin.
What a tale of two halves this season was. 3 teams had a 1-2, but in the end, it wasn't even close. Tons to cover as we revisit the first year of the new regulations, so let's get it.
What's happening? We are here for the 2022 season recap. It's been a long year. It's been an interesting one, exciting one. So without further ado, let's get into this. So we have a guest here with us today, Mr. Dustin Truesdale,
Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. We appreciate you being here. So Dustin is the co-creator and one of the admins of the F1 fans of DFW page, Dallas Fort Worth. And we've been lucky enough to get in contact with him and, through the Facebook page and whatnot. And he's graciously agreed to come talk some shit with us.
Oh, yeah.
So, Dustin, welcome, man. We appreciate you being here.
Appreciate it again, guys. Been looking forward to this for a while since Frank and I have talked. So I'm just ready to kind of hold me over on the F1 until the car reveals come out and we get into winter testing. So I'm ready for it.
Hell yeah, man. It's always a good time this time of year to just kind of jump back and either go watch some old races from this year or even go deep dive on some of the, if you got the F1 TV or even on YouTube, just go watch some old stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the goal, is do a little bit some more history lessons on F1 to get caught back up to where we are today for sure.
Yeah, man. So before we jump too far in,
dig into there.
Before we jump too far in, David,
yep.
Dustin, let's run through real quick what we sipping on tonight. I'll go ahead and kick us off. I'm actually going to be doing a little flight here.
Oh.
So, get ready. It might be one of those nights. And I'm gonna do a toasted flight. I'm gonna start off with Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel, which is 94 proof. Nice little entry level here. And then I'm gonna run through what I got stacked up back here. Then we got the 1910 Old Forester. Then I got 2 of the Penelope Toasteds, the Toasted Series, and the Louisiana Select, and then the Woodford Reserve Double Oaked. So we'll see if we get through all of them. I don't know, but
yeah, got a nice little selection there.
That was a heavy pour for doing a flight, so I don't know.
Yeah. All right. I am going to be doing a new bottle crack. So funny thing is I wasn't sure what I was going to drink tonight. And then I come back to the office at one point today, and on my desk is a bottle, this bottle. And my boss happened to get it from something over the weekend. I don't even know exactly what it was. And not a drinker, and it found its way to my desk. So I will gladly indulge in it today. I've never had this before. It's Old Cavalier, which is by the Tarnished and Truth Distilling. So this is a 11-year single barrel. It's 86 proof. So we'll see what we get.
That was a good one.
Yeah, it was.
Nice little
That was a good one.
Synthetic cork.
Synthetic. I knew it.
Yep.
Some of them synthetic ones, man, will rupture your eardrums.
Uh-huh. So we'll let this sit open up a little bit, and then we'll dive into it. And then after that, who knows? We'll see.
Take a little stroll
where
down
the conversation takes us to see what we go for in the next ones.
Sweet. What you got over there, Dustin?
I'm just doing the old faithful Woodford Reserve tonight. Not much of a whiskey drinker myself, but I got a few on the deal on the little mini bar in the living room, so I figured I'd do this one for tonight.
Hell yeah. It's a staple, man. That's one of those. That's one of those bottles that I feel like everybody should have on their bar.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Well, it's a good company whiskey. I feel like got little parties, get-togethers, or whatever, sitting by the fire pit or whatever. It's just a good, I guess a welcoming whiskey. Somebody recognizes it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt your feelings when you pour it for somebody, who may not be a whiskey guy. It doesn't, it doesn't cost a lot.
It's a household name
decent,
for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. Solid choice. All right. So let's get this thing rolling. So one of the first things I think we're going to get into here. We've talked about this all year long, and obviously our perspective on this is not quite accurate. But Dustin came into F1 from Drive to Survive back in, what was it, 2018, you said?
Yeah, first full season was 2019. I had just wrapped up the first season of Drive to Survive. Actually got to watch the first race live was Australia 2019. Awesome. I was obviously a Danny Rick fan coming into that. I think everybody kind of was.
How could you not be after that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a little heartbroken to see him tear his front wing off right off the bat in Australia. Mm-hmm. So
was that the one when he ran over like the grate off of the track?
Yeah.
Right off the rip. That was his first race with Renault. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so it was a little bit crushing as a new Danny Rick fan, and as you will, but I mean, it just kind of took me by storm. And went the deep dive, got into the technical stuff. I didn't miss a practice. I didn't miss a quali. It didn't matter if it was Japan or Singapore or Australia, whatever time it was, I was up. So, and that's just kind of where it took me. I kind of gave me something to do. It's obviously with the DFW F1 fan group, it's been a good connection for fans that we didn't know that we had in the area. It's sparked a lot of watch parties, and we didn't get to meet up at the race this year, but we all talked about it, right?
Right.
Last year is my first race to experience, and I mean it's pretty breathtaking, just to smell it, to hear it, to feel it. So I just kind of took the deep dive into it, and I'm a Drive to Survive convert, but I'd like to think that I'm a little bit different because I'm looking at telemetry now. I mean, it's I'm not just watching the race on Sundays. I mean, I'm watching the grid walk. I'm watching it all. Yeah, so
that's what we love to see, man, because that's how we feel about the sport, and that's how we've been for years, man. Mm-hmm. And you just can't get enough of it.
Right.
And then, to see somebody that came in off of this TV show from Netflix and to just be completely enamored by it and immerse themselves like you have, man, I love seeing that. And I feel like that's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's so good for the sport, and it's good for the fans, man, because for so long, like we would go to work, and still for me, but you go to work and you want to talk about the race and you just can't. Yeah. There's nobody there that even knows what the hell F1 is. They're like,
I think for the most part with it being more Americanized, we've got 3 races planned next year in America. I think we'll still have, the new and upcoming fans that are just, it's this new ooh-ah thing. There's one in Las Vegas, all the glitz and glamour of the Las Vegas race or Miami or whatever. We're going to have those, but that's for any sport. But it'll be cool to get the fans that are really in it for, the pure sport of it and following it more than just, oh, I like him because he's cute. I like, that kind of deal. Or, oh, he's in a Ferrari. I like whatever, just getting more of a backstory on it and the history. I mean, the second generation drivers and stuff like that. So that's obviously special. So I think with time we'll get those more diehard fans.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like it's been said. I mean, it's nice, talking with you because you have just become fully immersed in it, right? Like wanting to learn the history and watch
Yeah.
all those old races, all the way up to where you are now, from past to present. Um, I'd be curious to know how many people, a percentage, right? Like Drive to Survive has pulled in X number of new viewers, new fans, but how many of them truly, like, how many of them are really into it, right? Or are they just the Sunday
Right.
watchers
Right.
that like to, socially kind of, use it as just like a social thing?
Right.
Or yeah, who has really just like fell in love with it? Because I
I
know,
know. I'm sorry.
you
Go
know,
ahead.
I know you said, I think you said you had like some motorsports,
Yeah,
experience or,
grew up watching NASCAR here and
yeah,
there, a little bit of IndyCar if it was on, but never to where like I knew where they're racing, what time they were racing, any of the drivers.
mhm.
But this has definitely given me, like I said, something to do. But then
Oh,
I went
yeah.
off in the deep end, got into sim racing, obviously got some art, went to the races, and it's just, I mean, now it's a passion. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
So it's a
It's like
love.
one of those things that you feel like you can't live without at this point.
Oh, 100%.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
we're 2 weeks post race, and I'm like, what do I do?
I
So,
know. Yep.
but
Now's the time when, man, there's been all kind of memes floating around right about now, after another Sunday without F1 or,
yeah,
it's, feeling like it's been 2 years and then
I know.
something, somebody else being like, bro, it's been 2 weeks. Like,
Yeah, I know.
Like that one
Yeah.
with the rock.
He'll be here
when he's
before we know
driving
it,
the
though.
taxi.
uh-huh.
Yeah. He'll be here before we know it.
Yeah, Will.
That's right. So typically we'll kind of start at the front and work our way back. But I think today we're going to flip flop it and we'll start at the back and work our way to the front. Because, I mean, there's just way more to talk about at the front.
Yeah.
So we'll give the back end its due diligence and its due time. And then we'll move on. Not like usually where we get caught up in all the excitement in the points and then forget and just have to squeeze in, the Williams and AlphaTauris and the Haas's and whatnot.
There's some good content behind those teams, though, for sure.
Mhm.
That was
No doubt.
put in the shadow when the big heavy hitters are, duking it out. But there's
And
always
especially, man, when there was so much. I mean, obviously, the back half of the season was just so Red Bull heavy.
yeah,
But,
yeah,
I mean, you had such good races between really, I'll say Red Bull heavy. It was so Max heavy.
yeah,
But everywhere else behind Max, for the most part, in the second half, you had phenomenal racing, whether it be between, kind of a three-way fight between Checo, the Ferraris, and the Mercedes.
yeah.
And then the Alpine and the McLarens were great. And then you had like this jostling between the Alfa Romeos, the Aston Martins, and the Haas's.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was just kind of anybody's game.
And then Nick DeVries.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, there was just so much going on, usually within like around that points cap, that everything behind that kind of got forgotten almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the points breakdown between P5 and P6 between McLaren and Alfa Romeo is almost 100 points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, quite the difference there. But everything after that is pretty close shavings up until the Williams.
Until Williams, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, we spent a good bit of time talking about in the last couple of episodes, is that essentially what was the P6 battle for the constructors. I mean, Alpha and Aston were a little bit ahead of Haas and AlphaTauri, but it was still obtainable. if things went their way, Haas or AlphaTauri could have leapfrogged, a spot, or, if things went good for them, bad for one of the others, like that P6 and 7 for both of them was still very attainable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was essentially a four-way battle for, 6 through 9.
Dude, I feel like if that Brazil race would have been wet on Sunday like they were initially anticipating, I feel like K-Mag would have had a really good shot at sticking it up there way further and not losing positions just so fast like he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that could have flipped stuff on its head right there.
Mm-hmm.
Because he finished P8 in the sprint, so he got swallowed up slowly in the sprint, but obviously what happened with him and Danny Ricciardo was unfortunate.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I mean, that would have definitely made it interesting for sure. And just that track in general, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd have been.
I mean,
it would have been a refreshing, that's what we talked about before, is like a surprise podium. We never really got the surprise podium this year. So other than
you're
Lando,
right.
he was the only one.
And that was what?
The top 3.
That was early.
Yeah, that was at Imola.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
Because Leclerc spun out
when
he was battling, and then that ended up,
yeah.
Best of the best.
Let's kick this off with Williams and shout out Alex Albon, as I've ripped him for a while before this year, because in my opinion, him and Ocon, they were in their own little box together, and Albon removed himself from the box of doing stupid shit and having zero spatial awareness.
Yeah, I mean, dude, for a while, it was always talking about, Albon doing Albon things,
Right. And this year, him being that de facto team leader, coming in with the big team experience, I mean, it showed itself in spades here.
Oh, yeah.
In just quality of a driver over your teammate, which not that unlike Mick and Mazepin last year.
Well, I mean, showing the quality over your teammate, not to detract from Albon, but let's be real, that didn't take much.
Yeah.
But look, because we can't say that. I don't even want to say that. It's true. It's very true. But everybody gave George Russell all this praise for these years and how he dominated his teammate and all. And that's what he's being compared to. And, he's the next coming of whatever. So, I mean, it's only fair that we can't hold Albon. We can't say that for Albon when everybody clearly didn't, they didn't like to say how bad Latifi was when they were saying how much George Russell dominated him.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah.
But as far as the car side of it goes, is it the conversation of, did he get everything out of the car's potential, or did he outperform it because of his, skills, and he got his confidence back after the whole Red Bull thing?
Right. And
I mean, I don't know. That's definitely a good conversation to have based on the Russell's performance. But is it like we said, outperforming the car, or,
So they were talking about that on the Race podcast the other day, and essentially, like, they had some kind of metrics that they had access to that they were looking at, and believe Russell's performance last year was slightly better than Albon's this year. But what I'm looking at is that is a hell of a compliment to Albon, because Russell was in that car for 3 years at that point. So, and then also relative to the rest of the field, that car was terrible this year.
It had 2 or 3 tracks that it suited, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, man, I mean,
suited.
right,
Yeah.
right. So, I mean, I personally, man, I think Albon did a hell of a job. I mean, obviously, not being on the inside, we're never going to know really
Right.
what the true answer is, but I think it's safe to say that he outperformed that car. Maybe, you know, I'm not going to say every week, but, you know, a few times this year, maybe on average, he overperformed.
Yeah, he was definitely able to extract, you know, the car, the performance whenever it suited it, right? But obviously, we can't forget about the legendary one stop in Australia.
That was
yeah.
unbelievable.
for the points. I mean, last lap, come on, awesome.
That was unreal. Just the fact that he was able to make the tires in this day and age do that.
Yeah. Go that freaking long.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty incredible.
Because that was, how many laps was that he took those?
50
something.
It was, hang on. I'm going to,
because it was like 2 or 3 laps before the end, maybe.
Yeah. 57.
57.
Yeah. It's freaking amazing.
Yeah, that's unreal.
I thought he pitted with 1 lap to go.
I think it was pretty close to the end.
Yeah. Like he probably.
It's a 58 lap race. Yep.
Man.
He pitted on 57.
How does that? So here's something I never even thought of. He pitted on lap 57. So that means Williams' pit box is all the way at the end. So that means he would have crossed the start-finish line
and been on his final lap.
He did, and been on his final lap when he put the new tires on.
Yep.
And not completed a full lap on new tires.
Yeah.
I thought he crossed the line with the newer tires, and they said P11, and then his engineer was like, "Wait." So, yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
So, well, what I'm saying is, like, he would cross the start-finish line in the pits before he got the old tires off, starting his last lap.
No,
goes in his pit box.
Well, I guess it depends on when you look at like what lap they pitted on. Are they counting at what lap you were on when you entered your box or entered the pit lane?
Ooh, I guess it would be when you entered the.
Because if they're counting when he entered his box, then he would have entered the pit lane on lap 56.
Right. But shit, that's a great question that I don't know the answer to.
Yeah, I've never wondered about that.
If you think about retirement, if they would come into the box to retire, what lap would they have retired on?
Right.
Like, that is a good question.
See if I can find the answer to that.
Somebody have Michael Massey on the speed dial.
Right.
He's probably not too busy.
No, Michael. No.
Yeah.
So, all right, we can give Latifi his time here while you're looking that up.
Yeah.
And we're done.
Yeah. Well, he got lost at Suzuka. Let's not forget that he got lost at Suzuka.
Yeah.
And blamed it on the car.
Dude, that was unbelievable. I couldn't believe. I'm sitting there watching that, and I'm like, how? Just how, right? I mean, you watch some of these guys on social media and all, and they literally drive the track on the sim blindfolded.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
I know that was his first race at Suzuka, but still.
the car.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, in my opinion,
but he's got to have done sim work.
Even more the reason why, like, you should be so dialed in to having memorized that track. You know, it's almost like that stuff should be invisible to you.
Yeah.
And his comments were so hysterical. Where he's sitting there like, the car, I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Like,
he did something similar in Monaco when
when he
it was
drove it straight into the barrier,
straight into the airpin at Casino, I guess. He's like, that car wouldn't turn. I'm like,
yeah, it wouldn't turn. I don't know what happened. It just wouldn't turn.
Yeah. But you talk about doing the blindfold thing. I think about the video of Sergio Perez doing his behind the deal. And I mean, he's even correcting for oversteer. Like
Right.
He's so into it, and it's so like burned into him that he knows where the car's going to oversteer. So
Yeah.
I mean, you're either dialed in or you're not, I feel like.
And I mean that right there is the perfect example of his career in F1 and why he's no longer here. You know, and more to my constant gripe of how much I hate paid seat F1 drivers.
Yeah.
You know, I get, and I'm not saying that if that's the deciding factor where you've got two guys and they both, you know, you could say they both deserve a seat and there's only one seat available. Obviously, the one that brings more sponsorship money is going to get the seat.
Right.
But for some of these cats to be able to just, I mean, literally have their dad or whatever, you know, tie they have, just say, hey, you know, we'll throw up this amount of money towards your team if my guy gets this seat, I think is ridiculous.
But it's been refreshing on the flip side of that. It's been refreshing to see like Logan Sargent and Nick DeFries come in, because I'll listen to Beyond the Grid with Nick DeFries right after he signed with AlphaTauri, and man, he's his own manager. He does his own stuff. I mean, he's not coming in with all this money. He's proved it through F2, Formula E, and then Logan Sargent obviously is crushed it in F2, coming in his first year as a rookie in F2. So it is a breath of fresh air to see the true talent come in and not just, hey, I got this money, where's my seat kind of deal.
Right. Absolutely, man. And, you know, you see like everybody wants to say that Mick was a paid seat. But, I mean, Mick had, obviously with his name, he brought money, right?
Yeah, of course.
But he won everything on his way up.
Right.
Same thing with Lance Stroll. You know, people can say what they want, but the lower down you get, the more spec these series are and the more tight these cars run. He won everything.
Yeah, he did.
You know, so I mean, yeah, he brought money, but Stroll deserves to be there. Now, obviously, I think Daddy's money is going to keep him there for as long as he desires. But nonetheless, I mean, he earned his way in on merit.
He's no doubt earned a spot. Yeah. So real quick, I can't find an answer on when is the pit stop lap counted. I'll have to keep doing some digging because I am now curious to actually find that answer, but I'm not finding it yet.
I bet your Ferrari strategists don't even freaking know the answer.
Yeah, no joke. Watching some of the race reviews the last few days, it just pains me to re-see those botched strategy calls. And the crazy thing about it, of course, we can get back into it when we talk about Ferrari, is like I know it's on the PR side, but they backed it like it wasn't an issue. Like maybe obviously there's probably some conversation in the background, but come on.
Look, I understand, and we'll definitely dive into this because of the news with Mattia and all that. But before, I feel like initially I was fine with that because before Mattia had taken over, there was such this toxic, poisonous culture in Ferrari where, you know, if a mistake was made, it was like, all right, his ass is done. He's going to find his own flight home.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like in correcting that, it was almost like an overcorrection that we came to see. But initially, you know, you're kind of thinking like, well, they're probably just deflecting it and they're going to handle it internally, which come to find out, I don't know if that was even happening.
It didn't appear that way.
Right. Or however they were going about it, I don't think it was correct, but it was brutal to watch.
Very. It's painful.
But
especially wanting to see them come in and, you know, topple or be on the top step again, you know, like the history books, you know, legendary, the powerhouse of Ferrari, you know, you want to see that comeback after the last few years. And then just to see them just basically throw it away as a team, I feel like.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there were some driver errors, right? I mean, you can look back at was it Imola and France and
Imola,
a few
Paul
other
Ricard,
ones.
yeah.
And obviously Carlos had an awful start to the season.
Mhm.
They beached it a couple times, got hit a few times,
Yep.
spun a few times, but yeah, it's frustrating. I'm not I'm an everybody fan really, but you know, I don't hate Ferrari. They're not my favorite team, but it still pained me to see it just as a motorsport fan. So
Right. And we're definitely going to dive into that because I have a lot of I have a section that we're going to get into that I think was a crucial part of the season. So we're going to take a deep dive into that whole rhetoric here shortly.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
So I'm not even gonna say anymore.
Yeah.
We're gonna put a button on that one and tag it and come back to it.
Yep.
Let's tie up Williams, man. I mean, look, I do have one question that I want to pose to y'all about Williams and concerning their future, being that they were bought by, was it Dorian Capital?
Dorilton.
Yeah, Dorilton Capital.
Yeah.
These companies are their existence is to make money for their investors.
Right.
So at what point if this trend continues, because it seems like a shit show.
Mm-hmm.
It just, and not even in terms of organization, like you have at not Aston Martin, at Alpine, just in terms of the performance. It's like they're just not good with this new,
even with all the wind
regulation.
tunnel time they get.
Yeah,
exactly. That's even
all
more
the
frightening.
wind tunnel time.
That's even
they
more
get all of it.
frightening.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, do we even see them as Williams in the next 3 years?
Man,
if this continues.
I think and to be honest with you, me and you had this conversation, and I don't remember if it was on an episode or not, one of the previous podcasts, or if it was just me and you on the phone. But I guess for me, the way I see it, because like you said, they're a business, right? They're not the Williams family. This isn't in their blood. This isn't, their family name on the car. It's about making money. So obviously nobody is on the grid to come in DFL, right? But at the same time, from a business perspective, I think what it comes down to is having their name on the side of that car, having their name associated with owning, not associated, having their name as owning an F1 team, is that publicity, that airtime, is that netting them enough money to where, yeah, they might hate it that they came in last, but from a financial point of view, is it still benefiting them to keep going forward? With them, I honestly don't think it's a matter of what position they finish in. I think it's strictly comes down to what has doing that netted them. Now, obviously, if they finish higher, it's probably going to attract more and bring more money. But where they're at now, what's it netting them? And is it financially, feasible to keep going? I think is all it comes down to. I don't think they have those, deep ties. It's not in their heart, right? It's not like the Williams family where you're going to keep it going until there's absolutely no choice for them. The second it becomes financially irresponsible, I think they'll pull the plug.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I can see the, 2 or 3 years, 4 years maybe, the the luster of the Williams name, now that they're
Mhm.
not even in there anymore, that'll kind of fade away. That Claire's not involved and Frank has passed. Just the Williams tie, right?
Right.
I feel like eventually it'll just kind of fade to a point where a title sponsor will come in and it'll be, whatever F1 racing team, and it'll have some fancy new livery because we know how the money thing works. Cash is king. I mean, at the end of the day. So I can definitely see in maybe sooner than 5 years that it's not Williams Racing anymore. That it's
I would completely agree with that. I think you hit the nail on the head there with after a couple years. Yeah, right now they're kind of riding the coattails of Williams F1.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
We could be surprised this winter. There could be some title sponsor come in that's going to be some crazy yellow and red race car. Who knows? I mean, it's because I know when Doyleton came in, they said, this will still be Williams Racing. And that was last year, I guess they took over because they kind of clung to life with Claire in 2020, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's when it happened. I think she took. I think they took over like mid-season.
Right. Yeah, because Yost came in. It's Yost, right?
Yeah, Yost Capito.
Capito.
He came in, I guess, mid-season. Yeah, and then because was the beginning of last year they had the Rocket, or no, it was COVID. I think it was COVID year. They had the Rocket Racing, or they had the Rocket sponsorship, and they pulled out, and then. That's June when we start racing, and they just had that regular Williams deal, and that's kind of I think what steamrolled the rest. But yeah, I could definitely see in maybe sooner than 5 years that it's not Williams Racing, and they'll just have a legacy.
I'd be willing to bet, like if I had to place a futures bet right now, the new regs come out in 26. I would say it's somebody else. It's a major manufacturer that buys that operation for that set of regulations.
Or enter Andretti Autosport.
I was just about to say that the people like Andretti, those people are going to come in and scoop it.
But man, I tell you what, the day that comes, it's going to be a sad day to not have the Williams name on the grid.
I agree.
Right.
I agree.
That's going to hurt.
Yeah, man. I mean, what are they? The second or third? They're the third longest standing on the grid, right?
Yeah.
Ferrari, McLaren, then Williams.
I know Alpha's been in for a long time too. They may not have been in.
But I think consecutive.
Oh, consecutive, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
I think it's Ferrari, McLaren, then Williams. Which, honestly, I don't even know. Do you really even count Williams now? Should that record stop? Because when the sale of the team happened, because it's not Williams Racing anymore. You can call it that, but it's not.
Right.
So Ferrari.
Well,
Williams, 1978 to present. Ferrari, obviously in the 1950s. 1950.
Yeah.
I think McLaren was in between there.
96 when Bruce McLaren did his thing. In 63. 66.
66.
Yeah, 66. So 66 for McLaren. Lotus is in there, but they stopped in 94, obviously. Williams 1978 and Ferrari 1950. So yeah, you hit it right there with those top three.
Yeah. And that's, I think nostalgia plays a huge part in F1.
Yeah.
I think that's something that is important to the sport. So I don't know, man. Is it important to keep them going just to keep the name on the wall? I don't even know anymore at this point.
I think it'll get to a point where it's just not.
Yeah, would it be more beneficial for Andretti to come in and paint everything with Andretti and revitalize it and pump life in there, because it doesn't seem like there's any in there right now.
Yeah, well, to be honest, man, I think the as far as the nostalgia goes, I think that all that left when Claire left, right? I mean, yeah, there's a
That's
lot
what
of
I mean, yeah.
employees. There's tons of employees that have been there for however long that still hold all that nostalgia, but
Sure.
with the Williams family not involved in it, then it's just a name at that point. It's
Right.
not
Yeah.
the family racing anymore,
Right.
So yeah,
Like you said, when Claire left, and George Russell, I feel like they were really close. George Russell and Claire.
Mhm.
I think when Claire left and George left, I mean, it was just kind of a changing of the guard. Not saying that George is like a staple of Williams racing.
No, but
obviously.
he was like the last
He was like
true Williams driver.
Right.
Like the last hand selected kind of like guy.
Yeah.
So I think the changing of the guard is definitely what, like you said, kind of took the energy out of it. Because, when you think for me, it's different because I didn't, like you guys have watched this, most of your life. But, knowing the history of Sir Frank Williams and Claire and the whole team now, and thinking about it, like, it just doesn't feel like Williams, like even like it did in 2019, when
Right.
they were, I think they were Rocket Racing then too, but they're still Williams,
Yeah.
Right.
but regardless of the title sponsors, but yeah, definitely now it just feels like a shell of a racing team,
Yep.
I know they're probably still at core a close knit group, but as far as the Williams name, yeah, it's kind of lost its energy.
Yeah.
Man, I'll tell you what, that was Williams had some of the most dominant cars to ever be entered on an F1 grid. And then they had cars that challenged possibly the most dominant car that's ever been on the F1 grid in the Ferrari of 2002, 2 or 4. But really in 2, man, with Ralph and Montoya.
Yeah.
Dude, if those two guys could have been a little more consistent, they were so freaking fast, man.
Yep.
And that engine was a goddamn powerhouse. That BMW engine. It was insane, the power that thing made. And man, I mean, everybody looks at that era of Ferrari winning 5 straight and 6 constructors straight like it was pure dominance, and they compare it to what we saw with Mercedes recently. And it is not the same thing. I mean, Williams had Ferrari fought tooth and nail for every race. I mean, obviously there were some in there where they just, destroyed the field, but
right.
For the most part, man, you had 3 teams, and towards the end you had 4 teams that could win on any given race.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They just had the best operation going. And that's what pulled them, the whole department, everything. The strategists, the pit stops, the driving, the car, just the whole thing just worked seamlessly all the time. But, Williams, a lot of the time, was the one to upset that and throw a wrench in all those plans.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the stuff I need to go back and watch.
It was nothing for
for
Juan to shove it up there and be like, nah, I feel like playing with y'all today.
Bro, they had some phenomenal races in that era of really like 98. I would say 98 to 06. 2005 and 2006 were kind of anomalies for Ferrari with Schumacher because, I mean, the rules were intentionally changed to screw them over and to end their dynasty. And by the end of 2006, they essentially righted the ship and damn near won the title with Michael going out, and then won it the next year with Kimi, and then almost in 08. But I mean, that machine was damn near unbreakable. You know, it took them essentially a year and a half to completely redesign an entire concept and have it winning championships.
Yep.
So yeah, if you're bored this offseason, that's an era I'd definitely go watch. But
yeah.
Well, let's rein this in a little bit.
Back in the heyday of the partnership of Jean Todt and Ross Brawn.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's no surprise how quickly they got things turned around, you know, with that rule change and whatnot, with them two at the helm.
Yeah.
No doubt. But yeah, let's rein this in a little bit and jump in. We're gonna call Williams done. Fortunately, the next few teams have very short lineage, so we don't have much snowballs to go.
Yeah.
AlphaTauri, I mean, dude, what a train wreck this season was.
Mm-hmm.
After the last couple years, I really thought this was the year that they could really make a jump kind of to the front of that midfield consistently. And man, was I wrong. I mean, they were rough. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, they were kind of bad all over. Like it was just a bad car.
And combined 9 DNFs the whole season. Sheesh.
Yeah. They started off stronger than what they finished. And I mean, they didn't start off setting the world on fire, but I mean, they were, you know, they were putting it in the points, you know, the first few races at least. But it wasn't double points. It was just one of them. I think, you know, Yuki had 2 points finishes and Pierre had 1 in those first few races. And then, you know, then it was kind of like, oh, all right, you know, they might be solid midfield contenders here. And then they just kind of fell off and seemed to go backwards.
Mm-hmm. And I think once some of those teams, because I don't think they struggled with porpoising as bad. I think that once the other teams kind of got a grasp on their porpoising issues, that was it. I mean, they were ahead of the curve, you know, so to speak. And then everybody kind of got their wits about them. A couple, you know, I guess 5-ish races in, and it was just.
Yeah, like some of them were porpoising so bad. Like, which one was it at oh man, what the hell? Some of them were porpoising so bad they actively had to set their car up around it. Yeah. You know, like Ferrari was porpoising bad, but they just powered through it. And Charles Leclerc, he's like a robot, and he was like, you know, I don't really know what everybody's complaining about. Like, it's fine.
Yeah. He's
and
just
like,
a freaking
meanwhile,
savage.
they show the in helmet view, and you can't even see the track. It's so bouncy, it's so blurry.
No. And he's over there like, I mean, it's not that bad. I don't know what everybody's talking about.
Like he was on the Beyond the Grid.
Yeah,
and he's literally like, I don't know what everybody's complaining about. Like, it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's like, bro, have you seen your in-car video?
Yeah, it was just. For them, because like Gasly had such a powerful year last year and the year before, like he got the boot from Red Bull, he got demoted down to the sister team,
and then just killed it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, crushed it. He was Mr. Consistency like Russell was at the beginning of this year, the top fives. I mean, he was crushing in the top fives last year with the qualies and the race finishes. So I mean, there was definitely the hopes of a good AlphaTauri this year, and then Yuki, as far as a driver, I feel like he matured as far as his racecraft went.
Mm-hmm.
There was still some pretty young driver mistakes that we saw. He might not have been as angry this year, maybe.
We actually talked about this. Was it last podcast? Maybe recently.
No, it was.
We talked about it recently.
Well, we've talked about it quite a bit.
Well, but this particular, where Yuki is quick, like he's got the talent, and we felt like a lot of his problem was essentially like culture shock. Like he hardly spoke English when he started with the team.
Yeah.
His routines were terrible. He didn't really work out and train. He didn't really put time in the sim.
Yeah.
So those are all things that, as now that you're in the F1, you have the raw talent. Those are all things that are easy to build and to hone as when you have like this perfect structure and team that's telling you, hey, this is how your whole day is gonna go. So I feel like that's starting to get dialed in for him.
And his mental fortitude seems to be a little bit better for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I think the biggest thing is learning the English language so he can actually communicate well with his team.
Mm-hmm.
And as you see that progress, his overall status in every aspect is going to progress.
Yeah. I think one of the issues that seems to cause him a little more trouble is I feel like he gets himself too worked up, and it seems like that's when things start to compound, right? Like one little thing will happen, you'll hear him yelling and screaming on the radio, and then it's like subsequent things keep happening.
Let me ask you this:
focus is off. I mean,
yeah.
Whenever you're, I don't know if either one of y'all have spent a significant amount of time around people that speak a different language than you. But the first things that you learn is how to be pissed off in that language.
Yeah.
It really is. Like I did it at a golf course, and I worked with nine guys on our crew were from Guatemala. And the first words, I spent most of my day speaking Spanish. The first things that I learned how to say were words that related to not being happy.
Yeah.
So I imagine when I'm sitting there watching Yuki, I'm imagining that that's kind of the same things.
Yeah.
Like that's the easiest things to pick up on like that is the curse words.
Yeah.
And he might have a little bit of little man syndrome too.
Yeah, I'm sure, because he's like 4'9".
Yeah.
But as far as the healthy team rivalry with him and Pierre, like think back of Carlos and Lando, and just in history with good team teammates.
Mm-hmm.
That flourished too. So that was good to see. And I think maybe Pierre finally maybe got him by the ear. Maybe it was like, this is how the culture is. And, they fed off each other, because I feel like they, regardless of their P9 finish, I feel like as a team, they finished healthy.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like you think about Alpine and like Ocon and Alonso, which we got plenty of time to talk about that.
Yeah.
I feel like wholesomely they finished okay. So yeah, I think that was a good plus for them,
Yeah, I would agree. And I mean, and we talked about this previously, with Yuki and like Frank was saying, I guess the training regiment that they put Yuki on, right? You know, they had him move closer to the factory. They made him start taking English lessons. They gave him a gym regiment and really structured him. And when they did all that is when you really started to see the change in his driving. And I think they're on a good trajectory as long as it keeps going in that direction, right? You know, with Pierre leaving, you know, is that atmosphere, you know, with his teammate going to change? Obviously, we won't know that till it happens, but you know, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Yuki next year with a different teammate. You know, granted, yeah, the team atmosphere still stays the same, but I'm sure you're right. I'm sure Pierre was very instrumental in kind of guiding him through all of that.
Yeah. It'll be interesting.
So I would be shocked if they're in the same position next year. You know, but
Yeah.
David, I guess this answers our question from the beginning of the season as to how much information is shared between AlphaTauri and Red Bull. And I think it's safe to say it's fucking zero.
None. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I would agree.
I wouldn't even call it it might be called a stepsister team at this point.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not even close to
Yep.
the sister team. They say same power unit and all that stuff, but as far as, you know,
like it
think
shows
about
up
Red
in a
Bull.
box and it's like, all right, go ahead, figure it out.
Yeah, right. You
Here's
got to
my
figure out
Kia
how to put it
furniture with
together.
No instructions. Here you go.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And man, you know, I mean, I don't know, from Red Bull's perspective, you know, and I don't know, maybe this is why I'm not a team principal. Maybe this is a complete wrong idea, but I would want that team to thrive. Now, obviously, you don't want that sister team to be challenging the works team,
Right.
but you still want them to thrive better than P9.
A close
So-
P3 or P4, maybe.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because that's
You know,
money
I mean,
in the pockets of Red Bull powertrain. I mean,
Exactly.
That's the thing.
Whatever,
Exactly.
You know,
You know,
that
so, I
driver's
mean,
payout.
yeah.
It kind of blows my mind at what appears to be the lack of knowledge and information shared. You know?
Maybe it's there's a ton of information and all being shared, but it's only one way.
Yeah.
You know, because maybe that's exactly what they're there for, is literally to just be a feeder of information on the power unit and essentially a factory for their drivers.
And that's the other question. So, you know, we saw the Albon and the Gasly thing promote up. I mean, do we see that more or less kind of become a thing of the past with them? You know, when they
I
were
don't
the
know
Toro
about for the
Rosso,
past, but I think it's definitely I think that's their whole purpose for it. But I don't think that they have somebody in the pipeline right now that's got the
Yeah.
potential to make it.
Mhm.
yeah, makes
So I
sense.
think that it's almost like, I would imagine that Yuki has another year or so. I think they kept Pierre there so long because he was making them money at that team.
Yeah.
But Yuki was a project. So
Yeah.
I think this is going to be Yuki's year to shit or get off the pot, and they're going to decide what to do with him and put in some fresh blood after that because Pierre's rolling. So,
Well, you see, like they have Yuri Vips coming up through F2, and he's been doing or Liam Lawson. I
Mhm.
mean, maybe
Yeah,
they
I mean,
get him
they're-
in some more
I think-
FP1s, and
I think they're
give him a
fixing
seat
to have.
next year.
I think they're
or
fixing to
2
have
years
some
from now.
fresh blood in there, and it's going to be, you know, they want to pull from their system. That's
yeah.
always
Oh,
been
yeah.
the Red Bull way. They're almost the ones that kind of just initiated that whole system in the way that it is today.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
I just don't. I think
it's kind of.
I think it ran dry. The well ran dry a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
So now to replace Checo, because I don't think he's going to have a seat after this next contract, because I think he's going to be a serious liability going forward. If they're not dominant, he's going to be a liability.
Well, man, I think that's where, and I mean, we're jumping ahead here, but I think that's where Danny Rick comes in.
I was gonna pin that right there.
Yeah,
I'll wait.
You know, and look, I don't think. I mean, we know the way that Adrian Newey designs a car, the way that Max likes a car. It does suit Danny Rick's driving style, right? We know that. So we know he could jump in and produce. Do I think that they brought him back with the plans of, outing Checo if he doesn't do well and insert Danny Rick? I don't know that I really believe that they brought him in because of that. I think they brought him in because should they need him, to step in and fill a seat, they can count on him to be solid. He's going to be solid for testing purposes. They know what they've got with him. And should something go south, because we know Red Bull's not afraid to make a quick move mid-season. So should things come to that, they know that they have a contingency plan. I think that's more what he is. I think he's more of a contingency plan.
Yep.
I don't think that it's really the plan for moving forward in the future. I think it's just
he's a safety net.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think about Nico when he stepped in for Racing Point and for Aston? When those drivers got COVID, I mean, same deal. I mean, Checo gets appendicitis next year. Max gets appendicitis next year, and he gets a seat. He gets a drive, and he's their third driver dedicated. Not because you think about the third driver, reserve driver stuff like Mercedes. They've got Esteban Gutierrez, and they had Stoffel Van Dorn, and then they picked George Russell. But George Russell's been driving an F1 car, right?
Right.
So I mean, it's good to see.
That was kind of crazy.
The 2020 year,
the 2020 deal, where they were able to yank a guy who was currently driving for another team.
Yeah,
like
that's all that fine print there,
dude. I know, man, but that's
he belongs
still
to Mercedes for sure.
Yeah, that's just, man. Like these teams, it seems to me that's a weird line. That's a weird gray area. Like these teams are almost too much intertwined that you're able to do that.
Yeah.
Mid-season.
Well, Nick DeVries, how many cars did he drive this year?
Bro, what we said? Five?
Yeah, I think it was five. Mm-hmm.
Williams.
That dude was a grid whore, man.
Yeah.
Aston Martin. Mercedes. He didn't drive the McLaren.
I think he did drive a McLaren.
He drove everything. He did. He drove everything with a Mercedes power unit for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, good call.
God. And I think he drove McLaren first.
I think so.
Yeah, because there was kind of a toss-up on who they were going to have as their backup. Early in the year, I want to say it was, I think they had announced it was Piastri. They had worked with Alpine just in case because they didn't really have a reserve driver, and I think it was Piastri. And then that whole silly season crap happened, and then it obviously came to McLaren for real. But, he drove. Yeah, he's got secrets from everybody, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm sure they didn't give him much, but, still.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, let's jump into Haas real quick. We gotta kind of roll through a couple of these to get to the meat and potatoes of the season. But How about that debut for K-Mag?
Dude, right out the gate.
Not even being
P6, P5.
What was it? 5 or 6? 5 or
I think
6.
it's P5.
Let's see. Hang on.
Oh,
I
let's
got
do
it.
it.
I got it right
I
here.
thought it was P6.
Race result. P5.
5. Yeah, and then he followed it with a P6, I think.
And then
Shortly after that.
come Jetta.
The Jetta might have
April.
been
No,
bad.
Jetta
but-
was 9.
Yeah, but no, shortly after, I think there was no. Hold on. I think I'm confusing Bottas. Because I looked up Bottas the other week. And Bottas had like a stunning
Yeah, because Bottas was
opening 5-6 races.
P6 Bahrain.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking of when I
But
looked that
then-
up.
He was DNF
Yeah.
in Jeddah.
And then go to the next 2 or 3.
Australia, Bottas went P8. Imola, he went P5. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, dude, K-Mag had a great start.
Yeah. Yeah, to come in, miss the first part of winter testing, hit the second one, and score some solid points for the team. I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Of course,
What would
Gunther
turn
Steiner
out to
has
be
his
their
own hype
highest
train
finish
going
of the
on.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's great for them considering they didn't score a single point last year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, just in general, I mean, yeah, K-Mag finishing P5 was incredible. And then Mick coming in, finishing P11 that first race. I mean, yeah, it was outside the points, but still, coming off of what they were the previous year, that's fantastic.
Well, looking back at Bahrain first race, I think there was 5 or 6 Ferrari powered cars in the top 10 that finished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we were like,
the last
whoa, right?
and the last what was it? All the ones that finished the race were like 6 in a row Mercedes
Yeah.
from the back.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was like,
Yeah.
"What
Yeah.
is going on?"
Right.
Because that never happened. I don't know if that happened one time in the previous 8 years.
Yeah, because you had Aston, Williams, McLaren, Williams, Aston. That was P17 through P12. Then it went Haas, Alpha, then the Alpines, AlphaTauri. Yep. But yeah, I mean the whole, the last bottom 5, because there was only 17 that finished that race.
Right.
Because they had 2 Red Bull retirements for the fuel pump issue. And then there's another one I think that overheated. I think it was actually
Pierre.
AlphaTauri.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was Pierre
it was AlphaTauri. Yeah,
caught on fire.
that's right. Yeah, it was just a Red Bull. Yeah, Red Bull power,
Mhm.
not good.
Yep.
But I think it's good for them to secure this new title sponsor. They're kind of back up on their feet, financially with the MoneyGram thing.
Mm-hmm.
Considering how the season started with
Thank
the
God it
whole
wasn't a
Russia
crypto company.
Nikita. Oh yeah, FTX with Mercedes.
Right.
So, and I think the hype train. I mean, Gunther has kind of had a hype train since the Drive to Survive thing. And I mean, I feel like that can't hurt him,
Mhm.
Mm.
And this year, I think we'll see them bring on
Yeah.
some more
I
bigger
mean,
name sponsors
but man,
for that kind of stuff.
There's been a lot of questioning about Gunther, after this year with the way everything was handled with Mick,
Yeah.
and the contract, and I mean, look, I like Gunther. I like how blunt he is. I like that he's not he's gonna tell you like it is. I mean, he's not gonna just try to play the PR game and whatnot. But all that aside, I do think the way that they handled everything with Mick's contract this year was from what we know, right? Obviously,
Right.
there's probably a whole other side to this that we have no clue about. But going off what we know and the info we have access to, I don't know, man. I think it was kind of shitty. You know, the way they did Mick.
Oh, I'm sure it's definitely deflating. But if what they're saying is true about him going to Mercedes, because I mean, Toto said it, he belongs in Mercedes.
Yeah.
I mean, we could see him in a Mercedes down the pipeline. Say he gets in, a couple FPs, and I think it's kind of a toss up if he would get a seat when Lewis finally retires.
Right.
But
Mick will take Lewis's seat when he retires. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why. Because Toto Wolff will not have another Lewis and Nico Rosberg situation.
No.
And everybody for all the last 2 years kept on linking Mick to Ferrari seats and saying he deserved these big time seats. And I'm like, I can't see it. I don't see it. Well, I literally had this epiphany today, and it's like, how did I not see this before? There's only one way he gets to a big time seat. He is Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, that's the ticket, and you sign it, and you just be happy about it if you're Mick. You're never going to win a world title.
Yeah,
you're going to pick up a couple race wins, and you're going to make a shitload of money, and you're going to race at the front. But you're never going to be the guy.
Yeah.
You're going to be asked to do some shitty things from time to time. But that's his ticket into a big team.
100%.
Yep.
I mean,
everybody kept saying
he's going to replace Sainz, and I'm like,
no,
dude, are y'all what are y'all on, bro? Like, that's not going to happen. And then it's like, okay, well, I started thinking about it today. It's like, all right, if Ferrari gets their shit together, like Leclerc is obviously Ferrari's chosen one, right?
Right.
So if him and Sainz, like, it's all like a bromance right now for these first 2 years, but if it comes down to them legit having issues and, world championships being decided between the two of them, then, or cost between the two of them, Ferrari's going to move forward with Leclerc.
Yeah.
So, and then they would decide to put a, lesser driver in, and that would be his ticket in. Now it's just going to be in a Mercedes.
Yep.
And I'm happy for him.
Yeah. What was it? I think it's halfway through the season they announced that he wasn't even a part of the driver academy anymore anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that right there.
Well,
put the end of that.
I think people made more of that than what it was, though, because essentially I think that was confirming that Haas was at least 50-50 on if they were going to keep him.
Yeah.
And essentially what that allowed him to do is legit have an open market for him.
Be a free agent, basically.
Right. Because if he's still a Ferrari driver academy, half the teams are going to be hands off because they're going to be like, if you're still intertwined with this, we don't want you in here learning anything about our stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes 100% sense.
So I think that, I mean, honestly, like, people read into that the wrong way, in my opinion. I think that was a very nice courtesy of Ferrari for allowing him to legitimately have access to any team that wanted him.
Yeah, open some doors, possibly, at least give him options.
Right.
Yeah.
So, right. I think Haas will be a little bit better next year. I think they'll be a little more consistent next year with the influx of money. They'll be able to develop more throughout the year.
And spare parts.
Yeah. And man, look, I mean, Mick definitely hindered that with the amount that he cost them in damage.
I mean
almost
there's
5
no
million,
doubt about it. Yeah.
almost 5 million in a day where we have a cost cap and every penny counts.
Mhm.
That's rough.
Yep.
That is freaking rough. So
Well,
I would expect.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'll say the amount of Gunther Steiner T-shirts I saw at Coda this year, they could probably buy a couple more front wings
Right?
for sure.
Yep.
Next year at least.
Yeah. Man, I saw those two hanging up. I thought about buying one.
They didn't. We looked. They didn't have any in our size. They were sold thin on them things, dude.
Yeah, that was the deal for sure.
And that was like late in the day
Popularity.
on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And all they had was like smalls and like double X's. I mean, bro, it's a cult like deal going on.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
At least here in the States.
Yep.
But
Everybody loves some Gunther.
Oh yeah.
you know, the interesting thing, and we'll get into this down the road in one of the look ahead podcasts, but man, I'm excited about Nico and K-Mag. I think that's going to be some fireworks.
Yeah.
I
And,
mean,
and Gunther's the referee, dude.
Yeah,
That should be pay-per-view.
On the Gunther
Yeah.
topic, dude, it's going to be entertaining.
We'll see though. Like with K-Mag, seems like he's come back and matured because him and Roman did not get on very well together. I
Yeah.
mean, they were always crashing each other, bumping each other, giving each other punctures. So maybe both of them with the return, maybe there's a little bit of extra maturing. I mean, they're both older guys. I mean, they've been around the block. They've done the indie.
Mhm.
They've done whatever.
I can see Gunther grabbing them both by the collar and being like putting them against the wall and being like, listen up, MFers. Y'all going to play nice. Y'all are not going to hit each other and take each other out.
It cost me
We
money,
can't afford it, damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not going to
I mean,
go out
obviously
there.
they can afford it, but we don't want to afford it. We want to spend that money
Right.
on building a better
Yeah.
car.
You're not going to go out there and act like a bunch of wankers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We'll see. I think it'll be a good matchup to see. Just anytime you get those, spicy relationships even when they weren't teammates, like the suck my balls thing. I mean, like
Right.
Yeah.
that's just gonna be just to see how it's gonna kick off. Because the first beginning of the season they'll be nice, and then they may eventually start getting tired of each other, and that's when the sparks I think will start to fly. Is it
Something's going to happen.
there's gonna be a catalyst somewhere,
Yep.
and it's gonna.
Mhm.
I think that's gonna be the same thing with Pierre and Ocon.
100%
So we can get
agree
to
with
that.
that.
Except
100%
I
agree with that.
I don't think Pierre and Ocon is going to start off fine, and then one thing is going to happen because they already hate each other.
Yeah.
And dude, I think Ocon has a slight advantage in just that he knows the machinery. But I think Pierre is night and day better.
Well,
than
and
Ocon.
look,
Racecraft is
Pierre,
way better.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Pierre has, he's got the time at Red Bull, right? He's got the time in a big team. He's got the time being the guy, being, the team lead, the number one guy at AlphaTauri. He's
right off the bat,
he's got
right off
those
the
kind of
bat there.
things over Ocon. And I think Pierre has gotten to the point where that's going to follow him, that mentality, and that, that's going to follow him. And I think he's going to come in there and utilize those things, to the best of his capabilities. And I think he's going to overshadow Ocon, and that's not going to sit well with Ocon because he's been there,
Mm-mm.
I think he's going to come in and put him in his place pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And just you're going to see in the first couple of races, maybe even in testing, like this both of them trying to assert themselves in that team. I'm fairly confident that once Pierre gets a handle on that car, it's going to be him that does it pretty decisively.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen what happened. Ocon doesn't like that. And he'll take some pretty drastic measures, dude. So, I mean, the fireworks are there.
Oh, yeah.
If
Like
the
the wick's lit.
reliability
It's
gets
just
better.
how long is it?
Yeah, you're right, Dustin. I think that's going to be the key is if that reliability is there.
It almost seemed like they had a reliability button on the pit wall for Alonso last year, where they're like,
So, and that's the crazy thing about that. Like,
Yeah.
we can talk about it more, but with the Alonso deal, all 6 of his DNFs, he was in the points. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
huge.
yeah,
It was almost like the Botas button with pit
Yeah.
stops.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah,
that was real.
golly.
That was real.
How do you know this isn't?
I don't care what anybody says because that cost them
It
millions
costs a
of
lot
dollars.
of money. Yeah, I know.
But the Botas thing was freaking real. You can't tell me that in like 5 years, Lewis Hamilton had 0 flawed pit stops and Botas had 30.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know, like it just statistics don't work like that.
No,
Yeah.
it just
But-
I don't know about the reliability because Botas had a couple engine blowups that I can think of. Like, one that sticks out to me was Brazil when he was still with, I think that was last year, maybe a year before. But Lewis very rarely had any sort of reliability issues.
It's all true, man, and it all plays in. It all plays into the conspiracies, you know, like.
Yeah.
And man, like at a certain point, like when is it not conspiracy? When is it like, dude, this just keeps happening? It's not a
Mhm.
coincidence.
I mean, this year there was some pretty good reliabilities for both cars and in Mercedes, and they weren't
Yeah.
fighting for a championship.
Yeah.
That's
So-
why.
Yep.
As part, I mean, it feeds in even more to they were
There's-
staging it before.
One retirement for Lewis because of mechanical issue, and it was the last race.
Yeah,
The
with
other
like
one was
3 to go.
Spa with him, and I think it was Alonso that came together, and he had a retirement. But-
Yeah.
Well, like that was the first mechanical retirement of the year
of the year.
with 3 laps to go.
Yep. I mean, hey, you know how it goes. Once is an accident, twice is a coincidence, 3 times. I don't even remember the rest of it, but it's intentional at that point.
Yeah,
30 times and you can remove your tinfoil hat.
yeah. But you can't get that wheel nut off.
Right? I think that thing's just in a museum now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Dude,
World's
what was
longest
it?
pit
Because
stop.
that went down as the longest pit stop in F1
like
history.
30
It was like
hours.
30 something hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
they had to
They
like
didn't get it off till they
get
got
a
it back
Dremel
to,
to like retooth the wheel
yeah,
nut to get it
yeah.
off.
All right. Let's move this in.
Oh,
to-
no, hang on. We were
What?
wrong. It was 43 hours and 15 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's move this into Aston Martin. Not a whole lot of good this year from them in terms of race performance.
There's really, I feel like, not a whole lot to talk about other than Seb had some
Agreed.
good battles.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the green Red Bull at the beginning, and then they kind of debunked that, but
Yeah.
they kind of flew under the radar, I feel like, for the most
But
part.
Yeah.
You know, if
They
nothing
changed the side
else,
pods halfway through, or not halfway through. There at the beginning, but
about the first third, I would say, somewhere
Yeah.
around there.
Yeah.
But you know, what I think they did was show how clean of an organization they're building. With the way that
Yeah.
the way they kind of operated all year, right? They had a rough start, like they had a rough season, but you saw glimpses of good performance. You saw well-run races. You saw consistency throughout the whole year. You know, like there really wasn't any rhyme or reason as to like why they did bad, but there wasn't like this lingering, like they were just kind of always like, as a team, they were just kind of always true to the course, I guess. Like it wasn't like you didn't see like these huge implosions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we've seen, like we saw with some of the other teams. They just even when they had a bad weekend, it was just kind of like, yeah, like we got this and this, but we know what this is.
We'll brush it off and keep going.
Yeah, like and they just keep moving. And I think that was a great thing. And I think we gave Lawrence Stroll maybe an improper rep after his introduction into F1. And I think that was probably due to the way they portrayed him in Drive to Survive. They kind of put him off as like this big wig asshole who comes in there and throws the weight around and says, I want results now, and walks out the room.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, they did do that. Drive to Survive kind of portrayed that.
That's what I'm saying, but maybe that's not the case.
No, I don't think it is, because one thing that we talked about was there is no question that the man knows how to run a successful business, right? Like he is not an idiot. He knows what he's doing. Yes, he may be new to owning a Formula One team, but he's not new to business, and that's what this is. It's a freaking business
from his standpoint. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, Drive to Survive portrayed him like that, and I'm not going to say we didn't have our doubts or our thoughts on some similarities to the way they portrayed him. But one thing that we did always give him credit for was that he knows how to run a business successfully. And we expected nothing less. We never did expect Aston Martin to fail because, what the hell does he know about F1? Or he's just this, arrogant rich prick or whatever. Like we always kind of expected Aston Martin to not necessarily jump in and win, but to be successful with where they're at, and I think this year proved it, because dude, they were, consistently flutter right around that P10 mark. Occasionally they dip a little lower, occasionally they dip a little higher, but they were pretty consistently right around that P10, at least one of them, and there really wasn't any, not that we saw anyway, as far as just the whole organization, there really wasn't anything that you saw just consistently getting screwed up or happening. Like they were a pretty well-oiled machine, which is a reflection of Lawrence Stroll and the way he runs his business.
And I think the perfect example of that is how quickly and how well they took advantage of the Fernando Alonso situation. When it became apparent that there was a riff with him and Alpine, it was done, bro. Like they swooped in like a wolf on a wounded sheep outside of the herd.
Yeah.
Just like no hesitation, no, like just it was done.
Yeah. Well, and dude, I think that comes down to Lawrence Stroll knowing how to run a successful business, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like that's the perfect example of
he brings in Vettel.
All of it.
You bring in a guy that has been around for forever, has been with successful teams, is a world champion. If you're trying to build your team, what better thing to have than somebody who's been with the teams that are where you're trying to be? And then
they're stacking the deck for sure.
Right. And then Vettel's leaving. So, okay, we need our veteran guy. We need somebody, when things arise that maybe we don't know how to handle, or maybe we want some input on how this would have been handled from one of those front running teams. We need the guy we can go to for that. And oh, look, Alonso's pissed off with Alpine. There's our ticket. Jump on it. And they did. And yeah, I think that just speaks
He walked out of the
volumes
garage
to,
and went to the Aston garage. I mean,
Yeah.
like he
Yeah.
didn't even change. He was.
I know, dude. We were talking about that last, at the last race review, the Abu Dhabi review. Dude, when he got back to the paddock, he instantly was grabbing his stuff out the Alpine. What do they call it?
Motor coach,
Well,
hospitality
yeah,
suites.
and walking over, still in his Alpine gear, walking all his stuff over to Aston Martin.
Well, even was it? I think it was Brazil. He said, "Finally, one more, just one more,
Yeah.
just one more."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
dude's done.
Oh yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Dude had a rough start.
Yep.
Well, just
Have-
rough
have you-
season. I
yeah.
mean, just
Have you seen what Ocon has said about
What a
him leaving?
douchebag, huh?
he said he
Yeah.
did like 98% of
Yeah.
the work.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're nobody and he's Fernando fucking Alonso.
Right. Yeah, you're the grunt. Like,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, you get to do the car development. You do the sim work. This man knows how to drive a race car. He's got racecraft. Like, you get to work, buddy. You
Yeah.
know.
Like, bro, the fact that you come out and say something like that, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know who he said it to, but the fact that
He
you
said
say
it.
something like that in public
Yeah.
Oh,
just shows you how much you have to learn in this sport, bro.
yeah. Yep.
What a dumbass.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But back to like the
Hey, look,
the Aston
sometimes.
deal. Sorry,
No,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was saying just the good head or wheel to wheels that Seb left us with at the last season with him is just
Mhm.
nice,
Yep. Absolutely.
regardless of their finishing. I mean, he outscored Lance Stroll, but he was always right there in qualifying. But the strategy came together something for him to get some points. But man,
Mhm.
that man could race around the track for sure.
Yeah. Man, that was great watching him. Granted, we weren't sitting in that section, but
That was
being we
Coda.
were there and
Yeah.
then seeing him at Coda,
Yeah,
do
that was
the
awesome.
his last stint, I'd say, at Coda was just incredible.
Dude, who was it that he overtook around the outside of 6 right in front of us?
I don't remember.
He did it to
Was it when he was
somebody.
fighting K-Mag?
I think K-Mag, that
Forget who it
was
was.
over there
That was the
through
end.
like
Dude, he
19,
wrapped
20,
around the
20s, whatever that
He wrapped
section
around the
is.
outside of 6 around somebody.
Yeah, he did. And then he
And it was
dug
just
around the
bad to the-
outside of somebody through the stadium section.
It was just bad to the bone, dude. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
the balls that it takes to even attempt that is just astounding.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that, like real recognizes real when Kevin was like, it was more or less the context of, man, that was awesome to like race Seb like that, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like when we talked about back to the Williams thing, like the family environment stuff, I watch a lot of like Behind the Charge, the Insider, stuff like that on the YouTube channels that these teams have.
Mhm.
And the Aston Martin team feels like they have a really good family core environment because if you watch their insiders of every race is about somebody's different role in the racing team, whether it's the chef or the guy that's in charge of the tires or the race engineer or the content social media managers. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they're all plugged in together and it seems like it's a real tight knit.
Dude, you know what I
group.
noticed at Coda was they were the only team that I saw multiple people out in just with the fans.
Yeah.
Filming fans, yeah.
Just
Yep.
going like just doing random PR
Yeah.
shit, like
Mhm.
whether it was like giving out hats, asking trivia questions to win team, merchandise or
Yeah.
whatever it was. I saw them multiple times
Yep.
throughout the weekend. Friday,
multiple
Saturday, and
different
Sunday
spots and-
in
yeah.
all across the track.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
It was pretty cool. I should have got one of them freaking people information because those are just PR guys or girls. I should have got one of their information to come jump on with us.
Yeah, so like I don't know how it happened, but it was Jose, one of the guys, the co-founder of the group.
Mhm.
His wife's cousin mentioned me in one of the comments on one of the pictures he posted for Coda. Well, it was Seb's photographer, Connor, one of his photographers.
Mhm.
And I'd taken those pictures of Seb in the garage and of his dad at the what was that? Just the fan interaction deal they did every day.
Yeah.
And he actually reposted one of my pictures, and it was kind of cool. Like,
That's badass.
man, it'd be nice to kind of get like, of course, he's probably gets that from everybody, but to be close to that connection. And I thought about, man, how could I like get into this? Because I would love before I die to get my credentials to do photography for one season or just one race. Like, just be there.
Yeah.
And so you talking about getting just those, point of contacts. I was like, man, that's probably as close as I'll ever get, But,
yeah.
And he reposted, like I said, reposted one of the pictures of Seb and him, because I think it was a picture of Seb was looking at his camera as a picture he showed him, or his phone or something like that. It was a cool moment, but yeah, it's like, how do you make those connections? I mean, do the pit lane walks, get those pictures, tag those people, I guess,
Right.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that is cool.
Social media, man. I'd hit that dude up relentlessly.
Yeah, it's king.
Yeah.
So, but like on the photography stuff, like I took my camera last year and got some cool pictures. And then this year I took my camera and I filled up a memory card. I mean, I was like, last year I didn't get enough, but I follow like Mark Sutton and Kim Illman. Like those guys put out some just prime content every single race weekend. And so talking about getting into the deep dive of F1, like Kim Illman, he does vlogs of his travel. I mean, that dude goes to every single race and flies like top-notch airliners to all these racetracks and stays in all these nice hotels because his photography business is doing so well for F1 that it's paying for it. I mean, and the top of the line, he's getting these, caviar and all, all the fancy stuff.
Yeah.
And this dude's a photographer. Not that I'm looking at that, but just like these guys are so plugged in with F1, anyway, it's kind of a rant about that, but yeah.
Oh, hell yeah, man.
Yeah, that's freaking cool.
Might have to get you to do some freelance work for the Podium Proof project next year.
Yeah, I thought about getting some of the like the better, like the technical prints or some of the just like the on track prints and actually selling them, maybe, just cheap, getting like a canvas print.
Yeah.
But that'd be kind of cool because
I'm gonna get with you, dude, because when I do my office here in the next year, there's a couple photos that I saw that you posted that are just absolutely insane. That man, I would love to have on my wall.
I bet you, because Dustin, y'all were what, in turn 4 for the race?
Yeah, turn 4, yeah.
Bro, I bet you he's got a picture of Latifi up against the wall with us right behind him. That'd be a great picture
one.
We couldn't get our phones out fast enough.
Yeah.
But I called that one so hard.
Giovinazzi. I got a picture of him against the wall. It's kind of through the grid, the chain length, because the way my position from where he was. But I got a picture of him against the wall when he was in FP1 with the Haas.
I think
Latifi was it the same spot?
That was in the race.
Latifi was in the race.
Yeah.
That was in 6. That was like 30 feet in front of us.
Right up against our grandstand, yeah.
It was hilarious, man. Like I walked in.
On the flatbed.
We were sitting there watching. We were watching.
That was when we were sitting. We
were watching practice. No, practice 3. As soon as we got in there, and like the first couple cars came by, and we saw like that load transfer, And it was like I told Dave, I looked at David and I told him, I said, there is zero chance there. No, how did I say that?
I think it was something like, man, this is prime for Latifi to come visit us.
There is no chance that Latifi does not come see us in this wall this weekend.
Yeah.
And sure enough, dude, like lap 3, boom. Like as soon he comes out of 5, and I'm like, oh shit, he's squirrely. Boom, and just flips it around, going into 6.
Always count on him, man.
I know.
Golly.
All right. I think Aston Martin, points wise, wasn't an ideal season. However, I think they made a lot of progress throughout the season, and I think they put a lot of the things in place that are going to propel them forward in a big way. So, I mean, I don't want to go too much into futures here, but I think they're set up to do a fantastic job in the future. It looks like the things that Lawrence Stroll has been kind of putting out in the PR leading up to this year are coming to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
And, dude, I mean, like, I'm kind of sold on them as a long-term project, especially with Fernando coming in, because like Dustin, me and David have talked about this before, and I've kind of voiced my opinion to him. Like, I think Seb was done when he got to Aston Martin. It was just kind of like his send-off.
I agree.
Going out on his terms. Fernando's not done. Fernando still has that fire, and he's still a killer. He never lost that. Like, Seb used to, like, in the Red Bull days and the early Ferrari days, he was a fucking savage, and he didn't care about anybody except for Seb.
Yeah.
And Fernando still has that fire. And I think you're going to see that reflect in that team next year. And, you know, like, it was a great send-off for Seb, right? Like, everybody, we all love Seb, and, man, he's such a great person now. But, like, in my mind, I'm kind of like, fuck that. Like, I want my driver and my team to be an absolute animal. Yeah. Like, I want him to be out for blood. I don't want him to be liked by everybody. I want everybody to hate him. I want Max. I want everybody outside of Red Bull, maybe even his teammate sometimes, to hate his guts because he's that good and he's that about winning, period. And I think that's what you're getting with Fernando.
Mm-hmm. That's the mentality you need.
Exactly. And that's what all the greats in history have. And people like Lewis puts on this persona outside of the ropes of the garage, right? But he has it. Like that's how he is, period, on the track. He's just, in my opinion, has done the best job of drawing a line at the garage door and having this different agenda and persona outside of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To where people see him and they think he's like this such nice guy and this and that. But when that helmet goes on, like, he's still a killer. Like, he don't care about George Russell. He'll put him in the wall if that's what it takes. If that's the difference between him succeeding and not.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, there's definitely, he is, like, when you think about Lewis, like, he is one of those different breeds to where, like, when you look at him, like, he just seems so disconnected from the sport. But, you know, in the sense of, like, his personal life or whatever you want to call it, just but I mean, yeah, when he steps inside that garage, when he steps inside that race car and puts the helmet and the visor down, I mean, just think about any time you ever seen him, his visor's never up, dude. It's always just half, barely. All he can see is just through that visor, just that little bit of crack when he's just walking around. Dude's a killer when the helmet's on. I mean, straight up. There's no denying that.
I love that. I love that in a driver. And I think you need those guys on the grid. Like,
a
lot of people want to give Max shit for a lot of that stuff. But, dude, I think that's what it takes to be that good.
If you're not looking for thousands and 100s,
exactly.
you look for tenths. Looking for tenths, not
Yeah.
in these modern race cars and stuff like that, because it's so close in some aspects. But I'm not hunting for thousands, and I'm looking for tenths. I want 2 or 3 tenths on these people.
Right.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
I mean,
and that's what you still get with Alonso.
yeah, and look, people have short memories, but 2010 through 13, everybody felt about Seb exactly the way they felt about Max right now. Half the people in F1 loved him, and half the people wouldn't hit the brakes if he walked in front of their car.
Right.
I mean, it's that cut and dry. And, time heals wounds. And, eventually Max will get to – no, I don't think Max will get to that point because I don't think he'll stick around that long to get to that point. I think when Max loses that edge, I think he's done.
He's done.
But either way, like, that's just kind of the difference, right? Like, Seb just wanted to go out. I think he wanted to leave from Ferrari, but he didn't want to leave in the way that it transpired.
He didn't want it to be like that.
So,
because he expected to get a championship or 2 out of that.
I think so.
And
Yeah.
It didn't transpire. So,
and then he definitely didn't want to get fired from them.
Mm-hmm.
And that be the way he leaves Formula One.
Yeah.
Everybody's, you always read the articles now like, oh, Mick and him are going to come back into Audi in 2026. I'm like, okay, that's a reach,
Yeah.
Seb's going to be like 50.
Seb will be meditating under one of his trees he planted one day.
Right, that's tall enough
straight
now
chilling,
for him to sit under.
Yeah.
Looking like Jesus, yeah.
Right.
So,
all right.
I mean, he did a lot of good things for the motorsport.
No doubt.
Oh yeah,
and I think he will continue to do so.
He will.
He's just not the savage that he once was.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he was. I do think he was the perfect person to bring into Aston Martin to set the culture.
Yeah.
And to tell them what they need to do, because even though I don't think he was that anymore, I think he understood how to set them up to expect that.
Yeah.
And that's why they hired Alonso.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, moving into Alfa Romeo, I think Bottas was great. I think Joe's got a great future ahead of him. And I'm going to leave y'all to talk about it and go take a break real quick.
Yeah. I mean, and we've touched on this throughout the season.
And when I get back, we're going to move on to McLaren.
Yeah.
This one shouldn't take long.
No, I mean, we've touched on this multiple times. Alfa Romeo came out looking pretty strong.
Yeah.
And
9 points in the first race. I mean, we're like,
yeah. We're like, holy shit, like Bottas, man, this is what he's been waiting for, right? Like he's been waiting for his time to shine.
Yeah.
And we thought we were seeing it, and we did see it, but they didn't develop the car. They came out again, like a couple of them that we've said, talked about so far. They came out the gate pretty strong, and then everybody else got with the program, and they just kind of stood still.
Yeah, so they scored a giant chunk of their points the first 8 races, which is up to Canada.
Yeah.
That's kind of when people started to get the porpoising under control.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody kind of got their cars, set up for the season. Yeah. And then after that, they scored a big chunk of it. If it wasn't for that part of their season, they'd have been way lower.
Oh, yeah. Dude, they'd have been back here with freaking Williams.
So from Canada until the end, they scored 4 more points.
Yeah.
And that's a couple 1s and a couple 2s.
Mm-hmm.
So brutal. I mean, reliability, the Ferrari reliability, obviously, was one of the big keys.
Yeah. That hampered them.
Guan Yu got smoked in Silverstone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I don't think there was a couple maybe. I think most of them were just retirements. I mean, just
Mhm.
reliability and just underperforming, or just the car just was a shit
Yeah,
box. But
it wasn't
everybody caught
moving
up to them.
forward.
Yeah,
They
they had the
just
Ferrari power, and then the aero packages started to come in, and then everybody just shot
right,
over them. That was it.
right. Yeah.
So
I mean, there wasn't much else they could do at that point. And I really don't know. I haven't done much digging on it, but because you don't really hear about Alfa Romeo and AlphaTauri and what big upgrades they're bringing this weekend, right? You hear about Mercedes and Ferrari and Red Bull and McLaren, you know. So it's like I don't know. Did they just run out of money, or did they? I, I don't know. But for whatever reason, or was it just they couldn't get it figured out? They were spending the money and just couldn't find the answers because
yeah,
just everybody else, man, just kept taking a step forward and they just stayed planted right where they were.
yeah. I watched a lot of the technical analysis stuff, and going back to Aston, like they it was kind of on the line of controversial when they brought that different the different rear wing to
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hungary, and it
Yep.
had kind of like more or less end fences on it, or like flat sided to move the air
Mm-hmm.
out for more downforce. And when I think about Alfa Romeo, I think really they only brought was just small little aero packages here and
Yeah.
there. It wasn't like, um, you think about McLaren and some of the other teams that brought like full packages to these race weekends, new floors, new side pods,
Mm-hmm.
new front wings, new, whatever. Um,
They might have changed like one of the few little
yeah,
winglets that are
this
still on the
floor
car.
had a few different little cutouts.
Mm-hmm.
This rear wing, instead of it being kind of flowing up, it was more flat.
Yeah.
The typical aero packages for each race, like your Monza spec stuff and then your
Mm-hmm.
Monaco spec stuff on the
Right.
total end of the spectrum. But I don't recall them ever bringing anything just, totally game changing. I think they had what they had, and then people caught up, and that was it. They
Mm-hmm.
got a couple lucky points because of somebody, retired or it was on merit, but
Yeah,
that
and
was
that's
just kind of the end of
their
their season.
right. Their points, after those first 8 races. Yeah, any of their subsequent points were always, like you said, it was because something happened in front of them.
Yeah.
It wasn't that they earned it on merit. It was more of they earned it on attrition or
Yeah.
a happenstance with the weather or whatever it may be. And that's kind of what got them those last little few. But
I'll be
I
excited
mean,
to see what Guan Yu can do. And I was super jacked for Bottas to come out just swinging. I was like,
yeah.
oh, this
Oh,
is
dude,
it.
that was awesome to
That's it.
see. Yeah.
So,
How he
but
kept
I
his
still think
freaking
he's got
streak
it.
of Q3s going.
I
When
know.
everybody was like, "Oh, well, this is done."
Yeah.
Yep.
He was crushing it. And then
Yeah, I mean,
the
to see him
reliability caught
come
up to
from
him.
playing second fiddle for so long, and going to Alpha as the number one guy, and then come out like that, man, that was exciting.
It was refreshing.
Yeah, yeah, and you could see it in him. I mean,
Yeah.
just in any interviews with him, I mean, you could tell it was like he kind of had that second wind.
Yeah, because you hate to see those guys that are in the top teams, the constructor winning championship teams, and sometimes they go in those teams and they just kind of roll over. I don't want to say that's what Kimmy did. I think Kimmy was just tired. Kimmy's Kimmy, and he was like, "I'm gonna do a couple more here, and then I'm out."
Yeah.
So
I think he was still enjoying it, but I think that was it.
yeah.
Like, I don't think he really. I don't think he had that. I don't know. Kimi was always just so much just raw talent.
Yep.
That, man, when he got to that point, I'm not going to say he packed it in because I don't think that's. I think he went out there every single time and just did his thing. no different in his mind than
Yeah.
the first time he got an F1 car. But I think Kimi just, the age caught him.
He just never had the drink. That was the problem.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
know.
I'd get pretty tired of it if they kept forgetting to hook my drink.
If I was 40 and dehydrated,
Kimmy just needed the drink.
Yeah.
So I feel like the most simple thing on an F1 car is to get water in their mouths, and they just couldn't get it.
Yeah.
Poor
couldn't
guy.
figure it
Well,
out for him.
He's probably
Man,
still
I
thirsty.
forgot when it was, but there was one time where, there was something about they said something to me. He's like, yeah, I disconnected it. I could feel it leaking under my butt or whatever the context was.
I
But
think it was Monaco
And
last
then-
year.
and then his next comment was like, the freaking simplest thing here, and we can't get it right.
I think it was Monaco last year that happened because it
That might have been.
Yeah, it leaked everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's, he said the same thing. The simplest thing, we can't even do it.
water coming through a tube. Because some of them, I've heard. I think the Red Bull, some of them put them like somewhere in the nose,
Mm-hmm.
just for the front end. One for the front end weight, and then just the way the car is packaged. Because I remember seeing a race where somebody broke off their front wing, and it looked just like a water tube running through the front wing where they pulled it off. But they don't get it if they replace the wing, right? I'm assuming they lose that because they can't just rehook it up. But it could have been a totally different element to the car. But I do know that they have put. I've watched things about technical analysis. They put the water and the hydration stuff in the front for more front end on a more front end demanding track. More front end bite. They'll put that little extra weight of water in the front wing. Because obviously when the fuel comes out throughout the end of the race, the water will come out and then it gets a little lighter. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just get the man a drink.
Right.
I know.
Yep.
All right, y'all covered enough of Alpha when I was gone.
Yeah. I mean, we
I'd say so.
kind of talked about them in general and about Bottas. And I mean, like you had said, Frank, I do agree. I think Joe has a good future ahead of him. I think he's showed some promise. So, hopefully we'll see him continue on an upward trajectory and see what he's really got in him.
Yeah, no doubt. I think he'll be around in F1 for a long time. All right, let's move this into McLaren and where the conversation really starts here. Because I think going into this year, we all thought they were going to be a legitimate threat at the front.
Yeah.
And man, was Bahrain like the absolute just
Talk about a slap in the face.
thumbtack to the balloon.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that car right there, that was
Uh-huh.
a rocket. That was a rocket.
Yeah.
And then we get to Bahrain and they're in 15th and 16th or whatever. And I was just like, as a McLaren fan, I'll admit it. I was like, dude, this is going to be rough.
Yep. Gonna
But
be a
that was
long
like we
year.
talked about. The Mercedes were in the end. I mean, they were in the back end of the pack, the beginning of the year.
So the whole time, man, like during testing, I was like, man, McLaren they don't have porpoising. They're sandbagging. They're going to be fine. Like they're going to be really good because
In
the
Spain,
fucking Alfa
they
Romeo
were good.
broke a floor in half because they were porpoising so hard in testing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm like, McLaren doesn't even have that. They're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Turns out
They didn't have it because
they just didn't even make enough downforce to
Yeah.
porpoise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everybody's like, oh, Spain.
After the first race,
they're-
we're like, oh my God. Like,
Yeah.
this is a problem.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Yeah,
But-
it did not look good come beginning of the year.
Long story short, from McLaren is, and I hate to say this because I freaking love Danny Rick, but if Danny Rick would have pulled his weight, throughout the season, they'd have been in fourth place
100%.
Mhm.
comfortably.
With Alpine's
Comfortably.
reliability issues, 100%.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because Lando scored 100 and
I don't even think, even
22
without
of the
those
points?
issues, yeah.
Ricardo scored 30 points.
Yeah, 37.
He scored 37, and Lando scored 122 of those points. So,
Yep.
122, 37.
yeah. So,
Mhm.
yeah, like you said, without the reliability issues, I think they still would have no problem.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, like,
Just because of racecraft. I mean,
dude, because I feel like that Alpine was a better car than the McLaren.
oh, yeah.
But I still feel like Danny Rick on the surface is a better driver than Ocon. And I mean, Lando's killing it, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But fuck, man, Danny Rick just he had a recent episode on Beyond the Grid. I don't know if either of y'all listened to it. It came out like last week, I think.
I haven't
I
caught it
listened
yet,
to the
no.
one he did last year, probably.
No, this one just came out.
Okay, no, I haven't listened to that.
And it is super interesting to hear his perspective on it. And he essentially was like, you know, there was just things about this car that I could not figure out. But man, that's frustrating for me as a Danny Rick fan. And a McLaren fan, dude. Like, essentially, since Zach Brown took this team over, I'll become a McLaren fan. And it was frustrating because I think Lando is destined for greatness. I think he's going to be phenomenal if they give him the proper car.
Yeah, 100%.
I think Lando.
Back to Russia, other than the bad.
Oh, dude. God.
That was just an inexperienced, call on the end of that race.
Mm-hmm.
But just, dude, I mean, he held off Lewis the whole race.
Yeah.
I mean,
dude,
and he's done it with Lewis a couple times. The dude can race. I mean,
yeah. Oh, absolutely can.
Well,
I mean, we
can jump into my feelings on that, on Lewis here. I guess that's a perfect segue for it because I think Lewis has forgot how to actually race people. In getting so
Fernando said it.
Yeah, Fernando said it at Spa.
He said it at Spa.
He did, man. And that's, everybody jumped his shit for that, but it's 100% true.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's like people don't understand like how to, like that every situation is complicated, right? Like there's layers to everything. Like just saying that isn't saying that Lewis doesn't know how to race. It's just when you spend 6 years, the better part of 6 years, not really having to race anybody, like for real, week in and week out, like you lose that edge. You lose that
the wheel-to-wheel awareness.
Exactly, that competitive know-how.
Yeah.
And Fernando was 100% right in what he said, and he shouldn't have had to even answer for those statements.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When
he was in the W11, I guess is the 2020 car.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were winning by 30 seconds. I mean, just crushing people.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, you're basically just doing like in free practice, doing your race program, and that's what you're doing. I mean, you're just you've got some back markers and some traffic, but they give way for you. I mean, you're not racing anybody.
That's exactly the thing.
Yep.
I mean,
like
so
he forgot how to race people that don't get out his way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
because now I think about you saying that, it reminds me of Imola this year when he could not get past Gasly.
Yeah.
I know there was it was wet. I think they eventually ended up on slicks, but I mean, I think Russell was in points. He was in top 5 because that was one of the consistent things. He was at least in top 4 or 5, and he could not get past Gasly. I mean, whether that was because the AlphaTauri was just a little bit faster down the straights than the Mercedes, whatever, but he just couldn't do it. I mean,
right.
So,
and that's the thing,
Yeah.
man. Like have you name a time where you've seen Max get stuck in a DRS train?
he finds it in the slow corner somehow, and he just is just on him as soon as the exit.
Dude, like,
Yeah.
he just understands how to navigate that shit and how to pick people off and how to race people. You know,
when we think about Saudi with him and Charles playing chicken with the DRS zone.
Oh, dude, that was so freaking cool.
Yeah.
I mean, they're literally locking up going into the last turn.
That was awesome.
I mean, like,
I love that.
Yeah. Well, and that
because they were just
there,
both so aware of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that right there is the racecraft of thinking ahead and planning your move. And, you know, you're not looking right here. You're looking 4 or 5 turns ahead, you know, and that's the part that strategic part is what Lewis has lost, you know.
I know this is nothing.
I think this year probably did him a lot of good in getting some of that back, but he had a rough go of it. He had a rough go of it, man. Like, he had a lot of instances where you look at it and you're like, man, like this dude, how long has this dude been around? How many world championships he won? And he's making these kind of mistakes?
Yeah, he did some wheel banging for sure.
Yeah, man. Like, you know, a lot of people were talking shit about him and Max coming together in Brazil. And, you know, the way I look at that is, you know, because everybody instantly wants to blame Max. Like, oh, you know, we knew Max was going to just stick it into Lewis. But, you know, bro, Max earned that space.
Yeah.
I'm not
I
saying
was honestly surprised by that.
He didn't have the spot. He didn't earn the pass yet, but he was entitled to space there. And everybody wants to say, like, oh, Max races Lewis with a vengeance. I almost think it's the other way around. And I mean, like, I don't know if it's 100% true, but just from what we've seen, there's some truth to it for sure in the way that Lewis races Max. Because
well, I mean,
Max was 100% entitled to room, and Lewis shut the fucking door with a vengeance on him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hell, what was it? Leclerc and Lewis went through comps the same way Max and Lewis did, right?
Plenty of space.
Yeah, and there was plenty of room there. So I mean, the argument of Lewis races Max differently, and maybe Max does race Lewis differently, right? Like there's no real argument to that here, but it's got to be looked at both ways.
Exactly.
You know,
so I think it's like it's a
two-way street.
In my opinion, in 2021, Max raced Lewis differently because that was the only possible way that he would beat him for the world title. Like, they didn't have a superior car. They didn't even have they really didn't have an equal car. So Max had to go above and beyond to try and make whatever he could happen. And he took that to the extreme, for sure. But he's kind of always been like that. And he kind of races everybody like that. Like, I don't think it's not just like,
it's not Max
special for Lewis
racing Lewis. That's Max racing anybody.
Like, he's going to go for it. So, I don't know, man. I just don't. I have a hard time buying. I have a hard time buying that Max has just got it out for Lewis and he hates him and he just tries to wreck him out all the time, man. Like, I just can't. I can't get on board with it.
No.
Well, Lewis or Max and George had some incredible wheel to wheel in Spain.
Yeah.
I mean, they were both kind of going back and forth. I want to say it was Spain. Just good wheel to wheel action, but Max would go for those small little gaps if they had him. If it was there, I mean, he was going to send it no matter what.
Yep.
So, and that's what fast car or not, that gets you a position, that gets you points, that gets you prize money. You have to go for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's
Ayrton Sentinel, he was the one that said if there's not, was it?
Yeah.
If there's
exactly
no space,
if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
Yeah,
and that's exactly it. How is it like people like laud and revere Ayrton Senna over that statement, but
there's a lot of similarities
when Max
the way
applies
Max drives and
when Max applies it, people hate him.
Yeah.
It's like how do we have
people
this?
Forgotten.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's the same people, you know, because Hamilton always talks about how much of an idol Senna is, and it's the same people that laud Senna that despise Max. And it's like, how do we get here? What are we not seeing here? Because what you're applauding from 30 years ago is the same exact thing that's happening here.
But now,
it's not the team that you want.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that and maybe an inconsistency in the way the race directors operate, the stewards operate, the safety standards have changed.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
we didn't even have to tee that one up.
As a tack driver there.
Just there's inconsistency there. And I know we're driving home safety, which I think is good, but that might be a catalyst to it.
At the end of the day, it's the pinnacle of motor racing, and like they can say safety all they want, but at the end of the day, it's freaking racing, dude. Like at some point, you have to let somebody just send it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But look, that's a perfect way to put a button on it. But look, on McLaren, even though we deviated from them pretty significantly. Look, dude, I would expect them to just keep kind of inching up. The trajectory they're on, I don't know. Maybe they wind up getting in at a top, podium fight by the end of these regulations. With the current state of the teams, it would be hard because this isn't like we already have an end date for these regs, right? So I would be very surprised. Like it's a lot to clean up between in what 3 more years, 4 more years,
3 years, 4 years.
So, I mean, maybe like I'm hopeful, dude. I'm freaking hopeful. But
just for the history of it, we got the race win in Monza last year, and then the Monza curse hit us this year. I mean, look back at the Gasly, Leclerc, and Danny Rick.
Yeah.
Or Leclerc, Gasly, and Danny Rick deal.
Mm-hmm.
DNFs. You win next year at DNF.
Yep.
But and with Piastri coming in, with all the stuff following him, maybe he dusted off, whatever. I'm sure he will, but it's been hard to kind of get a good read on him just because we haven't seen him. We haven't really seen many interviews on him just to see what kind of, kid he's going to be, what kind of racing driver he's going to be. I mean, he crushed it in F2, but we'll see. They have the
Yep.
potential.
No doubt.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
Lando,
Yeah,
like we talked about, did he outperform the machine, or is that how good the machine was and Danny Rick underperformed? That'll be the question that'll never be
Mhm.
answered, probably. You know?
Mhm.
Was he a
Yep.
George Russell with Williams, or was it just he didn't get it?
Man,
Yeah.
as much as it pains me to say this, after listening to that Beyond the Grid with Danny Rick, I'm gonna say Danny just underperformed it.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's the way it is. I think that's the way it was. I think Lando's a stud. I think if they could get him a freaking solid car, he's going to do a lot of damage.
He's got
Yeah.
the skills. He's got the capabilities.
Yep.
He needs the car.
Yep.
Which I think, you know.
And when he's had the car, he's done good. I mean, he got some solid podiums.
Yeah.
In the years prior. I mean, he got lucky. I would say he got lucky on the podium in Imola. I mean, he's the only non-top three that didn't get a podium.
Yeah.
Best of the rest, but he can do it. I mean, it's just, it's a matter of just getting the car.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about like the last year with Carlos and Lando. I mean, that car was a pretty fast car. And then last year's was a rocket ship when they put the Mercedes in the back of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can just get the aero stuff under control, I mean, they've got the power unit, right? I mean, they've got the power more or less. It's just getting that aero, that downforce package just right. And I think, I mean, they maybe this year with a little bit more down wind tunnel time, they'll find something, that little something. Because last year they found I think it was the rear diffuser that was like McLaren had that lower diffuser that nobody else had, and it got them some good aero advantages.
Mm-hmm.
So
they were a missile in a straight line last year.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So hopefully they find that one thing. I mean, as a McLaren fan, I hope so. As learning about the history of McLaren, getting them back up to the top, that'd be awesome. But yeah, it's going to take a lot to go from that to top fighting for the top.
Yeah, I mean, they've no doubt got a lot of work ahead of them. But I mean, them as well as any of the other front runner teams, they're capable of it.
Oh yeah.
All right. I want to touch on Alpine because we've already referenced them multiple times tonight. I think the biggest issue that they had is their inability to manage their drivers. I think Ocon did a good job of getting what the car had, and he was pretty consistent all year. However, he did an absolutely terrible job of deciding what cars to race like a moron when it was his teammate.
Yep.
Like, I don't know, 4 or 5 times?
Yeah.
Well, he's deciding to try and pull these shitbag crazy moves on Alonso.
Well, dude, it was Bahrain. It was first race of the season.
Race.
He about put him in the wall. Yeah.
And the second in Saudi. Saudi was the big one.
Was it Saudi?
Yeah, they had a couple. I know Bahrain, they had a couple bouts, but Saudi
was the big one.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, him and Hamilton came together a couple times, took
Mhm.
off Hamilton's end plate, or somebody's got a hole in their side pod. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
doozy.
Yeah, it was Jetta, yeah, where he damn near stuffed him into the wall.
And then Fernando kindly returned the favor on the exit of 2 into
Mhm.
3.
Yep.
Look, man, I don't know. For the life of me, I couldn't understand why Alpine extended Ocon when they did over Fernando.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel like, and I think I've said this before, but you can always find another Ocon. Like, there's dozens of Ocons out there in the world. So, why you would preference that over Fernando, a guy like Fernando who still clearly has a lot to offer and a lot to give, blows my mind.
Well, I mean, I think that speaks volumes for what we don't know specifics of. However, we know there is something internally in that team majorly wrong.
Oh,
And
it's a shit show, dude.
Yeah, and that's clearly what Alonso couldn't wait to get away from. But you know, it's all relevant. You know, the way they manage them to the fact that they drug Alonso on, but yet were quick to re-sign Ocon and not recognize what they had in Fernando. And I mean, you could go all season long naming things that they did. Every which one of them points back to whatever it is inside that team that is just wildly wrong and problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious to know, you know, when Alonso can legally talk about any of it, or if he'll be able to, or what he'll legally be allowed to say. I'm curious to know what he comes out with, because I'm curious to know what some of those inner working problems were.
No, I can't wait for that book.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about last year when they came in as Alpine. I mean, they had that huge, just talking about like the technical side of things, they had that huge bulbous top air intake. I mean, it was just so, and they were slow. I mean, they eventually kind of developed up, but I mean, they were behind the 8 ball for sure. And it wasn't a new regulation. I mean, it was a Renault painted a different color, but they had some different, body work on it. I mean, the power unit hasn't changed. I mean,
right.
Been the same power unit. So yeah, I'm curious to see the like you said, the disorganization and just what comes about it. They probably put a gag order on them, I'm sure, for
Oh, you know it.
Oh yeah.
talking,
Yep.
And the absolute shit show that that the whole Piastri thing was.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, dude, like that just you had a guy that you brought up and wanted nothing more than to be than the seat that you had to offer. And then you fucked it up so bad that when that seat came available, he was like, I'm good.
Nope.
I'm good. I've got something else worked out.
Yeah.
And they announced him, and he was like, nah.
Yeah.
Like, and the crazy thing, I thought that was like my social experiment. When I saw it, I was like, oh, dude, how is this going to play out? And they left that post up on their Instagram for weeks until because it was I think it was about the summer break time. And that was the only thing that they had posted, because usually those, you stay relevant. You'll post 2 or 3 times a day. They'll push content out, whatever. Radio silence for weeks. So I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall. I might not understand it because it's probably French, but That'd
Right.
be cool. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it'd have been interesting to hear what they had to say during all that crazy stuff.
I know.
Yeah, no doubt.
Dude, I mean
So-
that whole situation was just mind-boggling, like how badly they messed that up.
Oh yeah.
Bad.
Yeah.
Like you went from having essentially your, you know, what, 3 weeks before that, you had your immediate and long-term future sewed up.
Yeah.
And you just completely botched both of them in a swift move.
Mm-hmm.
And that, what, god damn it, man, I had his name. What's his name?
Who?
The dude who is essentially in charge at Alpine. It's not Otmar. Rossi? Hold on. I know his name, and it's
Like the CEO, not the team principal.
no. It's not Otmar. The dude above him.
Oh yeah, Laurent Rossi.
Rossi, yeah.
Yeah.
He's the one who essentially just has set all this in motion because he did not give Otmar control to do what he wants.
Yeah.
And I think from now going forward, you're going to see Otmar with that authority.
Yeah. Well, and dude, there's also got to be some kind of reason that beginning of last year, I can't remember his name, but previous team principal and Alan Prost
Oh, Cyril
Both-
people.
both
Mhm.
left.
People. Yeah.
You know,
Cyril Abiteboul. Yep.
no,
That dude is another one of the Drive to Survive
Um,
stars.
yeah, yeah,
Well, you think about even like
Oh, Cyril.
past when Otmar left Racing Point, that was kind of a controversial move because he's like, "Oh no, I'm not moving," you know, and then
Mm-hmm.
you know, bam, he's at Alpine, the newly rebranded Alpine. So, you know, that's kind of a 50-50 side between it, you know, Racing Point and then Alpine now, or Aston Martin, whatever.
Right.
There's no telling what, you know, even with that move, like how much of a disaster it may have been. So, yeah.
yep.
Right. Let's slide down the road from Alpine and get into Mercedes here. I mean, from where they started the season to where they ended the season was, I guess, at this point, what you would expect of Mercedes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where everybody thought they were sandbagging through testing. Like, I haven't met one person or listened to a single podcast that has said anything other at the time than they've got to be sandbagging.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah, and
Because why
we
wouldn't
were
they
no
be,
different.
right? Because of the
Mhm.
expectations that we all had for them. And all of a sudden they show up, you know, and they aren't sandbagging. They are legitimately off the pace. And man, from beginning to end, they did an unbelievable job of getting on top of their core problems and figuring out a way around them.
Mhm.
Because dude, they had some serious freaking issues in the first third to half of the season.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, it wasn't just it wasn't that they were slow. It was they had issues that they looked like they were very much struggling to get a hold of.
Yeah, it
Like
was
like
like
they
they just
didn't
know
understand
the
what to
root
do
problem
to
was.
stop it.
Yep.
And it was almost like a flick of a switch, dude, where it was like they identified it, they figured it out, they stopped it, and then they started progressing.
Yeah.
I think
But
once they kind of got the
that's-
porpoising under control is when
Exactly.
we saw
Yeah.
the transition.
Yeah.
And that seems like it happened within like maybe 2 or 3 races.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, that's what took them so long, right?
Yeah.
That's what put them so far behind, was how long it took them to identify whatever it was. And then, but yeah, once they identified it, then it was like what you would expect out of Mercedes,
Right.
With the rate at which they then progressed out of it once they
Exactly.
knew what they needed to address. But yeah, I mean, up to that point, it was like, man, I mean, is this the same Mercedes that we've always seen? Or
every other race they'd have, in the 20s of points, and then have, 10, 11, 12, 25. So it seemed kind of like every other race until really Canada or Baku. They were like consistently banging out 20 to 30 points, as opposed to Singapore, which was a rough race.
Yeah.
And Abu Dhabi, but I mean Brazil, they obviously scored the most because they got their only race win, 58 points. But yeah, it like you said, the first third-ish of the race, season was just, it's not bad, but it's not Mercedes,
Right.
It's
It's
not
not what
typical
everybody
Mercedes.
expected.
I mean, they
Right.
were, like we've said this whole year, I mean, they were solidly ahead of McLaren and Alpine comfortably.
Yeah.
But they were solidly behind Red Bull and Ferrari.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess that also kind of speaks to being able to get this figured out, right? I mean, they at least had the comfort of knowing, like, all right, look, if obviously they didn't want to be third, but they weren't really being threatened from behind. So, that gives them a little bit of comfortability to sit down and take the time, because at a certain point, and it's not going to take long for you to realize as a team that, all right, look, this season, let's be realistic, we're not going to be on the top step, right? So now you're like, okay, we're sitting at a comfortable third, not really being threatened from beneath. So let's just make sure we maintain the status quo and let's get this figured out. So they at least had that to be able to take that time and really get down to the root cause of these problems they were having.
And I think pretty quick into it, they realized where they were, and they were like, okay, we're going to kind of shift most of our focus to next year's car.
Yeah.
But from now, we're doing damage control. I mean,
more or less. Yeah.
Once they got the zero side pod thing brought in the Bahrain, there wasn't much. And they brought some aero packages here and there, but nothing crazy,
Right. Yep.
Nothing revolutionary or just totally, flip side to what they were doing. So, but I mean, talking about that, like, good on George to come in and just give it to Lewis. I mean, that was good refreshing to see somebody come in first year and beat him out.
Oh,
So-
yeah. Yeah.
And I know they talked about the first part of the year. Lewis was kind of developing the car, whatever. But,
Yeah, there
I mean,
there was that whole thing of he's on different strategies, or he's running testing things, or
Different
is that
setups
true?
and all that.
Yeah, is that true? Maybe not. We'll never know that.
but,
I find
mean,
it so I find it hard to believe in the beginning of the season when you don't necessarily know that you're bad yet, that you're having your 7-time world champion driver running test setups. I have a problem with that whole theory.
Mhm.
If anything, if you're having struggles on, maybe we're off. Like I'm having my rookie run those setups, and I'm having my 7-time world champion who's going for his 8th run what we think is best.
yeah, I don't
Like,
believe that either.
Mhm.
But if they have the confidence in George that they always said that they did, like he can do a fine job in getting you your data.
Right.
So I struggle with that, man. Like I don't think that was the case. I think Lewis had a hard time with a rough car early on in the season. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like it is what it is, dude. Like it's just I don't know, y'all were off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it goes back to what we talked about earlier about one, the wheel-to-wheel race awareness and racecraft might be a little rusty.
Mm-hmm.
He's used to having a car that is,
Perfect.
Hold on. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, we got it.
He's used to having a car that's 2-3 tenths faster than every other car, and then he gets into one that's not, and it's kind of like a shock,
Right.
So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, but all in all, from where they started the season to where they ended it, I mean, that's about the most Mercedes thing that they could have pulled, dude, because for them to pull off a freaking 1-2 by the end of the year from where they started the season, Jesus Christ. I mean,
that's incredible.
And that was legitimately, well, I say that, no. It was almost 100% on merit. It wasn't fully because the other teams had some issues, but they were legitimately freaking fast.
Yeah.
In Brazil. Charles had a freaking issue. Max had a problem. Max ran into Lewis and had damage, and we get into that, but I think he had room. He should have had room, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you what, though, Mercedes is good at building freaking tanks.
Right.
Yeah, they can take some damage.
When they get hit, they don't really suffer in performance.
No. Yeah. Oh, dude, hang on. Did I save this? I saved this. Hang on. I'm speaking of Mercedes and the tank. I saw this picture earlier and I was like, oh, damn, I got to save this. I need to use this. And here we go. Perfect opportunity of Mercedes being built like a brick. Let's see. Let me share this picture here. Perfect representation.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Yes.
Yeah. The old brick.
Yeah. I mean, like in Monaco,
yeah,
his front wing was jacked up, and suffered no real pace deficit. Well, I take that back. His pace deficit was Alonso,
Yeah.
because that was probably the most entertaining thing about that race was how much Alonso held up everybody. It's
Yeah.
like 40 something seconds that he held everybody up.
Nobody could pass.
So, but yeah, their cars can take some wax and not lose any. I mean, chunks of the floor, and they're just like, nah, you're still banging out the same pace. You're good.
Right.
Dude, like, even look at last year when he ran into the back of Max at Saudi at the end of the year.
That should have been a DNF for anybody else.
Smashed
feel
his
like.
wing to shit. If nothing else, you got to go and pit and put on a new wing.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even lose time.
He won the race.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy.
Like that's what I mean, dude. Like how's that even possible? It's like he didn't lose any performance from losing half of his wing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just stunning. Like the way they built
like a brick shithouse.
What was that? Was that Baku or Singapore when he went straight on into
Singapore,
the wall? I mean, hard.
Yeah, yep. Singapore.
It went
and just
straight
backed out
tech
and didn't even pit.
Yep.
It's stunning.
Didn't crush the nose cone. Didn't do
no.
Yeah, nothing. I mean, I remember we talked about that, and the only thing we can
I get it. He went dead straight
like,
on.
It was dead straight, right? Carbon fiber is super strong until you touch it from just that little bit wrong angle.
Right.
But at a head-on angle, it's super strong, and he got so freaking lucky, man, that he wasn't, a degree angled differently.
Yeah, he locked up on. I want to say they were still on intermediates, and straight to the tech pro.
Yeah, because what's his name? Nothing. Couple laps later, did the same thing, same turn, but hit at a bit of an angle. And dude, I mean, the whole front suspension was just
Was that Yuki?
Whacked.
I think
it might have been. It might have been
just
Yuki.
it just smashed to shit.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even if you think about I think Lewis's 2 contacts with something other than, or just contacts with anything, was Spa, Singapore, and Austria's quali. Because both Mercedes bend it and took the cars off because they both. Was it Q3 that Lewis?
Was that Austria or was that Hungary? Where they both sent it into the wall.
I want to say it was Austria.
That was. Which one was that?
I don't know why I thought that was Hungary.
Because I think it was close to a wet quali.
Because Austria, I mean, Ferrari and Mercedes, Ferrari was just like on their shit that weekend. But Hungary was the one where they legit had a chance to win, even though they kind of had a fucked up quali.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that? It might have been Hungary. I thought it was Austria.
Let's see.
But anyway, he took a pretty good whack in the car. I mean, it had some damage in the rear wing, but it wasn't like destroyed like most other ones when they take a hit like that to the tech.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so it was Q3 crashed out, and then Lewis did, what's his name?
No,
Russell.
That's right. Hungary is where Russell had the pole.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Oh, I know what it was. Lewis crashed out there at the Sector 2, and then Russell crashed on the final turn. he came out, got squirrely, had some oversteer, had a snap of oversteer or something like that coming out of the final turn and crashed it
Yeah.
because they both just jacked their cars in Q3. And then I think they ended up having a decent race.
Yeah.
They scored 33 points, so I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, they finished 3 and 4 there.
yeah. I mean, but they were in the top 10 because they were in Q3 anyway, so they could have, even if from the pit, well, they would have started from pit lane if they'd have changed some components, but I think they were able to replace it with light parts.
Oh, that's why. Austria was a sprint race.
Yeah, that's what it was.
That's
okay.
why.
Yep.
Yep. I knew someone wasn't adding up right.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they did. They had a fucked up qualifying session, but kind of rectified it
On the sprint.
on the sprint. Yeah, Russell was 4. Yep.
And Russell started 4th on the grid for the sprint, and Lewis was 9th. So they had already put in good laps, I guess.
Right.
And then finished 4 and
Right.
8 on the sprint.
That's where they finished in the race. No.
Yeah, they
No.
finished 3 and 4
Where
in the
Lewis
race.
finished
3 and
3 and
4.
4.
Lewis,
3 and 4.
Lewis
Yeah.
and George.
That was old Mick's claim to fame, that race.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he was still a lap down.
I know.
Yeah.
He's 6, still a lap down.
Yep.
That's such a short track, though.
Yeah, it is.
But I do remember the Ferraris and the Red Bulls. Typically, it's been a pretty good Red Bull Ferrari race track. Well, I guess going back to
Yeah, I mean,
was it 19.
The Ferrari's pace was there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That was when Carlos had the fiery explosion.
Yeah.
Which it was so crazy. Like he was literally about to pass Max
Mm-hmm.
as his engine just exploded.
Yeah. Was that was the same race that was it Charles's car? The throttle wouldn't return to zero. That was the
Yeah.
same one, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. That was the one.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
There's always
it was
a roller
insane
coaster with
because
Ferraris.
which was so weird, man, because like at that point in the season, that was
It's in the summertime before
it
the
was in the
break.
summertime, but it was right before France and Hungary and Belgium and Spa.
Mm-hmm.
And they looked freaking dominant in that race. The Ferraris did.
Yeah.
In terms of like you name it.
Pace. Yeah. I mean,
Just pace
really
in general.
but yeah.
Tire life, pace, everything. They were dominant.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2 race time, it just flipped on its head and never recovered.
Yeah, they were eating tires up.
Yeah.
The egg was so bad.
It was so bad, man. And it never really made sense as to why. Because when you look at Austria, they were better than Red Bull, and it wasn't particularly close.
Yeah.
in terms of how they treated their tires. So how in the hell does that happen so quickly, man?
Yeah.
Which I guess let's just move it into Ferrari here.
Floor regs. Flexi floors.
Yeah, the flexi floor regs.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, that was before
started-
It was so break.
That started with
directive
Spa.
came into place.
Spa was like and that's when Max was just like flipped a switch, dude.
Yep.
P14 to win. I mean, Hungary, P7 to win.
And it never even seemed like it was in question.
No.
Yeah.
That's like when I sim race and I play AIs that are at like level 20. I mean, it's just, I mean, it's just no chance. No chance.
Yep.
Yeah, that was kind of, to me, that was kind of like the pivot point. It was kind of already leaning that way, and then the summer break happened, and then it was just over.
So, we'll look at something here. The turning point in the season. Like, you can't put your finger on like a race, but there was a sequence of races here that, and we're going to start at Spain and we're going to go through France. So I don't know what numbers those are, but Charles jumped out to a solid lead due to Red Bull reliability issues, along with having legitimately the fastest car on the grid. But they just capitalized on the Red Bull reliability problems. And then Red Bull kind of gets their footing a little bit. And we hit Spain. And Charles is dominating the race and has a DNF. Has the engine explode.
Yeah, his turbo exploded at the back.
Yeah. I mean, clearly was going to run away with that race.
Yeah.
And, you know, whatever. The engine blows up. So that's one right there that just goes away. And Max winds up winning it. The next race, Monaco. Charles is dominant again in that race. And Ferrari fucks him so hard sideways.
Yep.
Like, you can't even, like, I don't even know what else to say. What their strategy did to him.
Bad.
They just absolutely screwed the pooch. Unimaginably
cost themselves that
bad.
whole thing.
Bad.
You go from him having like a 15-second lead to being in fourth place in Monaco.
You're not getting those spots back.
Bro, no, it's done.
Nope.
And then, okay, so hold on. Before we even move to the next race for Charles, Carlos essentially righted your lapse in judgment for you, and you still figured out a way to put him behind a Williams in Latifi and hold you up to where it screwed you out of winning with your second car, who is still better than everybody else.
Yeah.
Yep. Dude, it doesn't matter which driver, which way you look at it. They just screwed everything on that one.
Like the fact that Ferrari did not get a 1-2 in Monaco should have told us everything we needed to know about this season in its entirety.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because they were clearly faster than everybody else there, and they still found a way to wreck it.
Yeah.
And then you go to Baku, and look, that was a toss-up, right? Like Charles was in the lead when his engine failed, when he DNF'd. But maybe he'd have won it. Maybe he would have finished second. It was up in the air with Checo at the time.
Mm-hmm.
They had a double DNF. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, maybe he wins it. I feel like he kind of set himself up to win it with the offset that the pit stops advantage gave him. But either way, worst case scenario, let's call it a second.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Max taking the win. That's another massive haul of points.
Yep.
The next race is Canada. He took an engine penalty because of Baku right there. So you're not expecting much. And he drove a great race there.
Dude, he went DFL to P5.
Yeah. He drove a great race
incredible.
there. So, that was just damage limitation. That was damage control right there. Silverstone, Ferrari fucks him again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bro, you have a golden opportunity for a 1-2, and you just wreck it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like, bro, you can easily, with the gap that they have under safety car conditions, double stack those two cars. Hands down, no questions asked. Like, it could have easily been done.
And then guess what happens when you double stack them?
You gotta make a quick decision on Leclerc. You gotta make a quick decision on Leclerc.
Mm-hmm.
But you tell him to pit and come in for those tires.
Yeah.
For those soft tires. And then you bring Sainz in behind him. Like, there's a big enough gap to make it happen. And guess what? Everybody else, even if one person stays out, one or two or three people stay out, who cares? Because your car is so fast and you got fresh tires, you're going to smash them in the first lap and a half.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think? What kind of game do you think you're playing? How does that not happen? And then Austria, they look great. Obviously, Sainz blew up, but the cars look dominant.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they definitely had the race pace for sure.
Yeah. And then, in terms of Leclerc, you lead into France where you've just hemorrhaged all of these points. And everybody wants to put this shit on him like he just can't handle the pressure. But in my opinion, man, like, I feel like a little bit of slack is due. When you look at all of the things that I just ran through.
Well, dude, I mean, up until France, none of it was on him.
That's what I'm saying. Like
France,
all of
France
those
was
things
on
that
him,
I just ran through, I feel like
Imola, he made a mistake.
Yeah,
he did.
Imola, he did.
He made a mistake in Imola, but at the time, you kind of can't blame him for it. It wasn't that dire, right?
No,
Like,
he didn't bend the car.
He went for something. He tried to get a little too aggressive on the curbs, and it bit him in a wet race where you get a little bit offline, and it might get you. But in France, by the time he gets to France, with the amount of points that Ferrari has just hemorrhaged through no fault of Leclerc's, I feel like he felt like he was in a situation where if he didn't send it 150% all race, it was lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess at some point, when you're running like that, a little mistake becomes a big mistake.
Oh, yeah.
And it just got him.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But, everybody wants to say, like, oh, man, Leclerc's not really ready for the pressure of that. Bro, like, I feel like if you don't have, like, those 6 things that happen ahead of that, that probably doesn't happen. Because he doesn't have to push as hard, and it's not as important.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, that's the way I feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
Feel free to weigh in,
those
because that was the turning point of the season, right?
Yeah, and it like you said, like you started out that whole thing with, it wasn't like one particular race, one instance. It was a whole string.
It was definitely a cascade
compounded
effect of
results
and poor team strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But the momentum definitely shifted after the summer break, after the Spa.
Yeah.
Or I guess really, Hungary was big
right
because
before.
It was right before, and he won from, was it P14? Was it P14?
Was that the one he did, P14, or was it Spa?
P10, sorry. P10, P14 was Spa, yeah.
Yeah.
So P10 for Hungary, came back, smoked it, and went to summer break, and then Belgium, Netherlands. I mean, it was just on from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean,
look,
at that point, the whole, from the summer break onward, right? I mean, if you look at even when Ferrari wasn't clearly the faster car, when Max was leading, whatever, I mean, they were right there. Ferrari was right there with the Red Bulls.
Mm-hmm.
It was really Spa onward where you saw that gap really just build. And coincidentally, that's when the floor regulations came into play.
Yep.
I think that had a lot more to do with it than what was led on.
Oh, yeah. I agree. Because that was the talk of the town. Because you think back to last year when we talked about the flexi rear wings. I mean, there's still dots on the back of those things because they had speculation that under load, those rear wings were, coming back and creating less downforce to be faster in the straights. I mean, similar deal. It's just different year, different component. So and that I mean, it was a talk of the town for a race or two, and then it just kind of fizzled out. But
yeah, exactly.
That's one of those things, dude. That's always something like that will always be there in F1, right? Like somebody's always going to be accusing somebody of pushing the envelope a little bit too far. They got flexi floors, they got flexi wings, they got flexing this, they got double diffuser. That's not legal. Oh wait, turns out it is. They were just better at you than at reading the rules.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just like it's always this thing, and it's like who can read the rules better?
Yep. Who can exploit that gray area?
That's what we talked about Aston Martin in the rear wing. I mean,
Yeah.
the end fences on those rear wings where it flattened out, which was nobody had ever seen it, just to get that extra airflow and downforce around Hungary.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
Yeah.
they got the gray area and they exposed it, and it'll be interesting to see if more teams adapt that rear wing next year. I don't know if it worked for Aston because their car is already kind of on the back foot, or what. But it'll just be curious to see if that's something that people kind of look into, because
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the aerodynamics of it, they had it to where it forced more air down, you know, on that wing. And I think they ran it on a couple of those high downforce tracks throughout the rest of the season.
They did.
I mean, so
yeah.
it must have worked, you know, to a point.
Yeah. I mean, if they kept bringing it.
But that's that gray area, and it's so crazy to me. Like, that's what I love about it, is like there's these people that are up, you know, obviously probably getting compensated and paid pretty well for it, that can just pick out little things and go, we can take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
We have the technology and we have the, you know, the equipment for it and the machinery. Let's do it. And like, just to be able to unfold those layers of the onion, like we talked about, and to expose it, extract that extra tenth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just incredible to me. The engineering side of it, you know, on that tangent is just crazy.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah. Yep. All right. I would say we move this into the final team of the season to talk about. The winner of everything, Red Bull.
They, you know, it was really, if you looked at this season, like if you were brand new to F1 right now, like as of today, and you just went and look at the final standings, you're like, holy shit, this season was a bloodbath. But in terms of like being in it for every day of the season, that really wasn't the case. Because Ferrari, for the majority of the season, had the fastest car. They had the most poles. Yet Red Bull had the best race car at the end of the day.
Yep. Well,
but
they had
it
the
was
best
just
race
like that
car.
thing.
They had
it was
the
just
best
like
strategy.
That's what got them.
The strategy was killer.
That's what won them the championship this year as early as it did. Like, chances are their development in their car would have won them the championship either way.
Right.
But their strategy and the way they just absolutely maximized every point possible all the time is what won them the championship as early as they did.
Yeah.
Period.
I sure hope Hannah Schmidt got a big old fat raise.
Pay raise.
I hope, even if she didn't get a raise, I hope she got a fat ass bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She earned that one.
Dude, I mean, just killed it.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, that was one of the most dominant second halves. I guess you call it halves, maybe half for lack of a better fraction here. Dude, like that was insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After the summer break, it was just holy shit, man. Like what? How many other ways can you say Max won. You know, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah. They freaking killed it, man. Every way that they could, every way they needed to, except
Okay,
for their number 2 driver. You know, every
All right,
other
okay.
way they
Hang on.
killed it.
Let me see here.
So Brazil and
So after Hungary, Spa was the
Singapore.
first one back from the summer break.
Yeah.
So Max won. Keep a tally here of how many races and how many wins after the summer break. Spa win. Zandvoort win.
Mm-hmm.
Monza win. Singapore, Red Bull won. Like Checo won, but not Max.
7th.
Japan, Max. US, Max. Mexico,
Max.
Max. Brazil, George. Abu Dhabi, Max. Holy fuck.
Yeah.
I've never even, like, up to this point, I hadn't just literally itemized it like that.
He won every race but 2.
Every race but 2.
Yeah.
That's why I think
Like, I knew it, but I just
You know,
didn't like,
France
Yes.
and Hungary-ish were
Singapore
process it
and Brazil
like that.
is all he didn't get.
after
Yeah.
the summer break.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, man.
Yep.
Hungary. I feel like Hungary is where we saw just this unbelievable version of Max. Like something happened where it was just rocket ship.
Yep.
I mean, what
Absolutely phenomenal.
a season, man. But, you know, just as a whole, early on, you knew they had a fast car, but just kind of never got out of sorts, even when they were way back, stayed in it, and just kept his head down.
Yeah.
They just destroyed it, man. And obviously, you know, Ferrari's woes ate it in their ability to catch up. Because
205 points.
if Ferrari has solid strategy, this thing goes down to the end.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even aside from the reliability issues, you know, the reliability issues cancel themselves out between Red Bull and Ferrari at the end of the day. Ferrari may have had one more
I think
overall,
Yeah.
but essentially that cancels themselves out
Yeah,
between
if
the
you-
two
if
of them
you-
early and mid-season.
If you take away just the strategic fuck ups,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean the championship is being decided in Abu Dhabi again.
Or maybe even Brazil or Mexico. But either way, it's a drawn out thing. And look, it had probably got to a point where you were like, okay, like Red Bull's gonna get it. But
mathematically, it was going to take them longer.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They wrapped it up in Coda for the constructors.
For the
For
constructors.
Yeah,
Easy
Max,
peasy.
Max wrapped it
Before
up
that,
in
Suzuka.
Suzuka.
And Suzuka.
With that bullshit penalty.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
fucking ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But I mean, if you think about like the dominant Lewis Hamilton, he wrapped it up in Coda in 2019. Yeah, because that was the last race before 2021 because they skipped the COVID year.
Mhm.
Mhm.
He wrapped it up for his 6th in Coda. I mean, dominant, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just to wrap it up. I mean,
I
it's
was
towards the end
hoping-
of the season, but I mean, still, dude. I mean, you got some
Right.
races left.
Dude,
It's
I
a
was
lot of points.
hoping Max wrapped it up in Coda. But
Yeah, that'd have been awesome just because we'd have been there to see it.
he got it done before that.
Yep.
But we were really hoping that Max would have wrapped it up in COTA just so we could have been on site for like the clinching of a World Drivers' Championship. That'd have been awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But the Stewarts had other plans.
Yep.
Along with Martin Brundle.
Yeah.
Oh, Martin Brundle. Yep.
Another exciting season, though. I mean, thinking about last year, down the last race, last lap. I mean,
Yeah.
we had,
Yeah.
the less of the surprise podiums like we talked about, like we wanted, but, still an overall exciting year as an F1 fan and enthusiast for sure.
No doubt, man. Yeah. I mean,
No
all
doubt.
the bitches and complaints we have throughout the season, like, man, at the end of it, it has been an awesome season, and looking at this season, looking towards next season, as to what we've learned from this season with these new regs, new cars, next season should be even better.
Yeah.
So,
Ready for those car liveries.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Man, look, I think that I think this was for the first season of a new regulation. I think it was very exciting, and there's a ton of, even though Red Bull dominated the points, Ferrari showed that over a lap they have the fastest car. Beforehand, in the previous regulations, we had Mercedes that was dominant, and they were dominant every freaking where.
Yep.
Like, there wasn't a part of the sport that they did not own.
Yeah,
So
practice quality race.
Like, it was just like if they weren't 1-2 in practice, we were like, oh, okay, they're doing something strange here with like something with one of the drivers.
Yeah.
And then like in the race, they straighten it out.
Yeah.
But I think Ferrari showed that like their concepts and what they're doing is at least legitimate in going forward, to where I think 2023, man, it's all up for grabs. I don't think Red Bull's locked into anything. I think they had a hell of a back end of the season, but had Ferrari not, just literally pissed down their leg on the first half, it would have taken all of that second half of the season to clinch it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, look, not diving into this, we'll have another podcast to dive into looking at 23, but like you said, I mean, nothing is secured for them moving forward. They're going to be significantly down on wind tunnel and CFD time.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's going to play a role, and then just everything that was figured out this year is going to be showcased next year. So, but yeah, man. I mean,
one thing real quick, man. Gunther Steiner's got him a little press here in the last day or so. I don't know who he was interviewing with, but he said that Ferrari's 2023 power unit is the bomb, quote unquote. Hinting that Ferrari has made major progress.
Yeah, hopefully that's not a literal
explosive.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
We already saw a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit. But I mean, look, if that's the case, like I don't look, bro. I mean, it's Gunner's Haas. Like it's not. Although he's probably like the most ranking guy as a Ferrari power unit owner that's there now. So maybe we should take it for what it is
Mm-hmm.
because Mattia is gone.
Yep.
We'll see.
But you know, man, look, if Ferrari got their I don't know. I don't think their power unit is their biggest problem. I think despite their struggles early in the year with their blowing up, once they got a handle on that, they weren't out of the running. The problem was their tire degradation in the second half of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They couldn't manage their tires at all.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's just what killed them, and that's what let Red Bull just run away weekend after weekend.
So I mean, yeah, like if they don't have any DNFs, if that's what Gunther means, then sure, that'd be great for Ferrari. But I mean, shit, get a handle on the freaking tires, and you're in it till the end.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was the deal with a couple of years ago with that Haas. When I guess it was last year when they didn't, or the year before when they really struggled to score points. Was they built the car, they bought the parts from the works team and integrated into their car, but they didn't build it around the tires. And so the previous, versions of the Haas was just a shit box because they couldn't get the tires to fire up, or they had a high deg, or
Mm-hmm.
they couldn't get the temperature of the tire. But it's because they focused all the energy around the aerodynamics in the actual car, but not around the actual tires. So
Yep.
it'll be curious to see if they can put it all together. They've made progress, obviously, so we'll see.
Yeah. We'll see what they come out with next year. But all right.
So I don't know if you selected a quote or not, but I think I'm going to hijack it, even if you did
All
for
right.
the first time this year, and grab one. And I don't know if you've done this one or not, because I know this is a favorite of yours, but I don't have all your shit written down. But I'm going to do it anyway because it's suiting for where we're at.
Go ahead. Let her rip.
And it is by none other than Enzo Ferrari.
Mm-hmm.
What's behind you doesn't matter. Period.
Yeah, actually, that was, I believe, the very first episode we ever did. I did that quote.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Because-
We'll finish the season off with the same one.
Because, we're moving into 23 and 22 is done. So,
Yep.
In terms of Enzo Ferrari's perspective, screw 2022. It's all about 23.
Yep.
That's right.
That's right. I mean,
get it.
it's about as fitting as it gets.
And Zach Brown and Toto Wolff and
Mhm.
Otmar and all the rest of them, except for Christian,
Yeah.
feel that way. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
let's ride.
Yeah. So look, as for the off season with podcast episode releases, so at the moment we are gonna take a little break during the off season. We're not gonna be releasing every week like we were throughout the year. Right now, the concrete dates are we're gonna do once a month, the second Wednesday. So second Wednesday of January, second Wednesday of February, there will be a podcast released. And then after that, that'll kind of put us right into gearing up for 23 and gearing up for testing. There is the chance that as me and Frank are talking and kicking ideas around that something comes up, we want to do an episode. So, there's always the chance of an episode coming out and being thrown in the meantime, but those are some of the concrete dates you can count on.
Just keep your eyes open.
yeah, just keep an eye on things, keep an eye on the social media, and on wherever you get your podcasts at, and we will release a couple extra ones hopefully as we come up with a few things to talk about. But until then, we'll go ahead and sign this one off. And man, Dustin, want to thank you again, man. This has been a blast having you on here.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been
Man,
awesome.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah,
Enjoyed the
welcome
hell
back
out of it, dude.
Anytime.
We'll definitely link up next year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And have you on.
Be a pleasure for sure.
More than once for sure, man. We enjoyed the shit out of this.
Yeah, man. This was great.
Like I said, I just I like to talk F1, like Jose and the other guy that I work with that are part of that group. I mean, we'll be at the fire station just shooting the shit, and we'll talk F1 for hours. I mean, so it's just something we're passionate about.
Dude.
It's been fun to do, and I'm ready.
I'll tell you what, man, for sure. What we're gonna make happen next year is for COTA. We're gonna have an in-person podcast.
Let's do it.
Yep.
With whoever else wants to join from the area.
Yeah. Make it a big old round table.
Yeah, we're gonna do it big next year for COTA.
Link up somewhere, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, we'd love to have you on before that, and we're gonna make that happen. But for sure, we're gonna ink that shit in right now. That we're gonna have COTA's gonna be a party next year. We're gonna have a podcast from the site.
Yep. Yeah, it's gonna be good. Big things are coming. So yeah, so everybody, again, if you didn't catch in the beginning, if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Dustin is the co-creator of the F1 Fans of DFW Facebook page. Go check them out. Request to be added, and if you pass the muster, he might add you in there.
Yeah, we're gonna try to do some watch parties again this year, and just get together and just enjoy F1 as it is, and do the fellowship, and try to spread the word more of the potential for more fans in the United States for sure.
Hell yeah. I might have to make me a little road trip up to Dallas, man.
Yeah, man. Ain't that far.
One of these watch parties. I know it ain't, man. I think I can do it in about 6.5 hours.
Yeah, you could do it. It ain't bad. We'll put you up.
We'll have to line something up.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
I appreciate it again, guys.
A little more of a hike for me, so I might have to bow out of that one. But I think that's getting into like about a 24-hour drive. So, but yeah, man, we'll definitely catch up and we'll do this again for sure. But
perfect.
In the meantime, next episode will be second Wednesday of January. I don't have in front of me what the date is of that.
We went Joe Rogan status on this one, man.
Yeah. Freaking 3.5 hours. So hopefully we didn't put y'all to sleep. Hopefully y'all enjoy it. And we'll catch y'all on the next one. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Dustin, thanks again, man. It was great.
Thank you, guys.